But down the stretch run we go in the NBA. Of course, after the All-Star weekend, it is time for the more serious portion of NBA basketball as we inch closer and closer to spring. Doesn't feel like spring today, and it won't all week. Cold and snowy. Then it was rainy, and then it was sunny because we live in Utah. But, of course, the mountains needing the snow because the snow bros need to, shred the gnar. That's how we put it on this show. Speaking of which, the Olympics have been a lot of fun. Dual moguls, I think that's my new favorite event. Watching those races just blows my mind. So a lot of Olympic conversation on the show. But, of course, we'll look back on NBA All-Star Weekend. Shout out to our guy Dame Lillard for his third three-point contest championship. A lot of debate, surprisingly, about whether or not he should have been invited. I mean, I guess maybe he took a spot from somebody. Hot take, the dunk contest is dead. It is over. It needs to be removed from the weekend. And the new NBA All-Star format, I thought, actually paid some dividends as a result of the passion and intent of two players, Victor Wembanyama and Anthony Edwards. And then the old heads kind of had to try or else they were going to get embarrassed. But I thought a lot of fun moments from the All-Star weekend and an unexpected fun format that I think might be able to pay some dividends. In the world of college basketball, some rough news for BYU. Richie Saunders, who came back as a senior to try to play his way maybe into the first round of the NBA draft. He's done for the year with a torn ACL. BYU needed overtime to beat Colorado. A night where they honored Jimmer Fredette, James Taft Fredette. They retired his number, the fifth BYU basketball player to do so. And then the first in 23 years since Danny Ainge had his number retired as well. The University of Utah continues to, invent ways to lose. I don't know if you caught this, but they were on the road over the weekend at Cincinnati. They were up 5 with 70 or 80 seconds left. And then the wheels just fell all the way off. The Utes have now lost 15 straight Big 12 road games. They've lost 9 straight games overall. They're last in the conference at 1-11, 9-16 overall. K-State also 1-11. They fired their coach over the weekend. Some drama there. A really good Big Monday game last night out of the Big 12 between Iowa State and Houston. That was a heavyweight fight, man. So we are now inching closer and closer ahead to March, where the madness of March will be, of course, a lot of fun to get to. New number 1 team in college basketball, that is Michigan. Arizona falls to 4. But, of course, the Big 12 continues to be just a absolute bear for all of these teams. Tiger Woods spoke today, said he's not going to rule out a return at this year's Masters. And every time Tiger says something like that, people pay attention. Colin Morikawa got off the snide. Oh, we've got to give Chris Comrani. Chris Comrani picked Colin Morikawa to win the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. My guess is it's because Colin is the only golfer he knows, but CK called it. All right, good guest list today. Now, guys, right off the top, Bobby Marks. Bobby Marks, who's the nicest guy in the world, became public enemy number 1 out here. Bobby's going to hop by right off the top today at 2:30. Aaron Falk, sports editor, ? Of the Salt Lake Tribune. We'll let Aaron announce what he wants to announce today, but we'll bounce around a couple of different things with Aaron on the show. Zach Harper, NBA Daily Assist style. Pablo Mastroeni, we hope. Last couple of times he's been set to join us. He's had to hop off and interview some players. So, Bobby Marks, Aaron Falk, Zach Harper, Pablo Mastroeni, me, Spence Checketts, running at about 50, 60%. But I'm all in. Porter Larson, what percentage are you today, young man?
Good question. Good question. More than that. 80, 90? I'm feeling good. The shoulder, still working through some shoulder stuff off air. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, ready to go. That's not going to affect my radio game. And we've got plenty to get to. You mentioned All-Star Weekend. I think one part of All-Star Weekend was a success. The rest of it, I think, was kind of embarrassing for the National Basketball Association. Bobby Marks will look forward to that conversation. I want to be clear. That's not the person you should be mad at in all of this situation, even though, of course, maybe you can disagree with him. But we've got a bunch to get to. Enjoying the Olympics action. Missing football already. Hey, and you mentioned the Utes finding new ways to lose. Maybe they're just tanking. Maybe they're just trying to get a good draft pick.
Is that a thing in college basketball now?
Well, we're going to abolish the draft in the NBA, so we can just make them both the same, right?
Tom Haberstroh. Although the Utes did get a commit for next year from a really good European player.
True.
So that's good news. Look, I was watching Iowa State and Houston last night. This big Monday, Big 12 I don't think there's a Ute that gets 1 minute for either of those teams.
Right.
Not one single player plays 1 minute for either of the teams I was watching last night.
And as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, the real question for Alex Jensen is who can you get in that room, right? We know he's a good basketball coach, X's and O's, in-game stuff. That stuff's not a question. It's about the players you can get into your locker room. And as you mentioned, he added a good one over the course of the weekend, and a few guys that are in that locker room that I think should remain, including one that is out with injury right now. So some reason for optimism going forward you just may not see on the court right now.
It's a tough one. Thought they had that in Cincinnati, but they couldn't get it done. All right, Bobby Marks, ESPN front office insider for the NBA coverage, will join us right off the top. But before we welcome in Bobby, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. Don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It is available here in Utah, of course. Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, NBA All-Star Weekend. Once upon a time, my favorite weekend almost on the entire NBA calendar besides the playoffs, because the playoffs are always awesome. But once upon a time, All-Star Weekend was both a celebration of this league that I love and this game that I love. And it doesn't feel like it's been that for quite some time, okay? A couple things. It's interesting to kind of digest the debate about the issues the NBA has here domestically while people are knocking on it, and I have certainly, because your regular season product oftentimes is unwatchable. The NBA is really leaning into, and I thought the All-Star Weekend really it encapsulated the following dynamic. The NBA is leaning hard into capturing young consumers. Like, they don't really give a rip about anybody who is used to the All-Star game featuring two teams playing hard, or once upon a time players cared about playing 82 games, or once upon a time players weren't buddy-buddy all the time. They actually wanted to kick each other's ass. Like, they've clearly leaned away from that, and there is a new generation of NBA culture. There's a new generation of an NBA business model where they don't give a rip about the issues that most people have with a regular season. They are leaning into what young kids want. I was watching NBA Media Day once upon a time. Used to be a lot of fun and pretty cool because a lot of coaches and players would actually give you things that were interesting to hear. And we had media members back then, not influencers and bloggers and YouTubers who are credentialed now. It's so pathetic. And when we had good media members, we had good questions, and therefore we would get good answers and thoughtful answers from Greg Popovich or Jerry Sloan or Michael Jordan. And now I'm watching it, and Devin Booker was asked about his aura like 6 times. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? And what I realized after kind of digging in a little bit is the NBA had intentionally invited these massive influencers with huge social media followings on Instagram and TikTok Is Twitter still a thing? I don't know. But it feels like on the social media side, what the NBA has done is embraced the fact that young people are living online. And so young people who live online consume pro basketball via House of Highlights on Instagram. They want to see a Giannis dunk. They want to see a Steph 3, a Wembanyama block. They don't give a rip if the Spurs are playing the Sixers. They're not going to sit down and watch that. They're going to sit down and look at their phones and check out an awesome Lowry Markkanen dunk or a highlight from an individual player, an Anthony Edwards fadeaway jump shot. They're not going to sit down and watch the T-Wolves Jazz game. They want snackable content on their phone, and that's what they consume. And what became very apparent to me over the weekend is the NBA has absolutely leaned into this. You had influencers out there participating in some of the actual events. Is it Drewski? I like that. Yeah. Okay, so he was actually passing during like the event where the old. And by the way, shout out Allen Houston. My man can still shoot it. But this Drewski idiot, he's so annoying. He's out there like passing, and then at one point he intentionally threw the ball way over the player's head so he could have that for a video clip and post. So between the actual events and media day, what I realized is the NBA is going all in on the young people consuming their product. And it is influencers who are given credentials and given opportunities to participate and ask literal questions. I'm dead serious. I heard them ask Devin Booker about his aura 6 times.
Yep.
That the NBA has made it clear that this is where they're going now.
Yeah, and like you said, it used to be a celebration of the league, but I think more a celebration of basketball and talent, right? And I don't even really care if you play hard during the All-Star game. It still used to be like the best 14 basketball players on the planet. They all competed. They all at least showed up. I like that they were wearing their own jerseys. That's some nostalgia thing to me. But now it is more of a break, a vacation, and hang out with your buddies, hang out with famous people, and the lean towards, as you mentioned, influencers rather than like credentialed media members. Now, some of the media members were there, but it reeks of unseriousness. And that is, I think, not that you want to make the All-Star game serious, but when you're dealing with a issue league-wide of people not taking your product seriously, why are you leaning into it? Drewski is hilarious on YouTube, on his little YouTube page, right? But when you bring it into the actual competition part of All-Star Weekend, which the skills competition last year, Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul kind of threw it. They threw the balls instead of tried to shoot them and make them and kind of made a joke of it. And now it keeps going further and further in that direction. And I'm out on that stuff, especially, Spence, when you don't tell anybody and then you make it a matinee product at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah, in fact, it's funny you bring that up because I'm out on Bonnie. I walked 9 holes on Saturday afternoon, and suddenly my buddy Brandon is texting me. He's like, "Dude, Donovan's on fire." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "This 3-point contest rules." I'm like, "It's 3:00. What do you?" And then I look at my phone and I realized because of the Olympic coverage, they decided to move it to the afternoon. Luckily, I had recorded everything so I could go watch it. But they didn't say anything.
Getting bumped by pre-recorded, TV delayed Olympic coverage is kind of says a lot about the NBA.
Yeah, they didn't say anything. And so, yeah, again, I was able, and I will say this, the 3-point shootout was awesome. And I think it was really cool that Dame won it. I love that he got the invite. Donovan was really good round 1. Con Knipple, man, that kid can really shoot it. Devin Booker, if you had to basically encapsulate a snapshot of what a jump shot looks like, it's Devin Booker's. And Booker and Dame going at it down the stretch. Booker just needed one of the final 3 balls to go, and it didn't. And Dame gets the win. I thought that was really cool. Finally, I'll wrap it up here, though. Victor Wembanyama might save this league. A, he's awesome. B, he's different, as we've talked about. And C, he wants to slit your throat and watch you die. It's a little morbid. He wants to compete. And because Wembanyama, an ant, set the tone, the old dudes were like, we better play hard or we're going to get our we're going to get embarrassed. We better play harder. These guys are going to humiliate us. And so everybody really kind of leaned into, for the most part, playing pretty hard. And we got about an 8-minute reminder of why when he is healthy and when he is right, there are very few basketball players on the planet who are in the area of Kawhi Leonard. That was amazing. But we'll catch a break. First guest, Tuesday show. Bobby Marks coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. Jazz will be back in action on Friday against Memphis as the league takes a few more days off before we're back at it. Stretch run ahead now that the All-Star weekend is behind us. Our next guest became quite the celebrity in our market over the past couple of weeks. I've known him for a long time and have respected him for a long time, and now a lot of people in Salt Lake City certainly know the name Bobby Marks. On a Tuesday afternoon, Bobby, how are you, sir?
I am doing just great. How are we doing today in Salt Lake City?
We're good. We're good. I want to know what this has been like from your end, because ultimately, Jazz fans are a passionate group, and an owner wants to use social media, and you know that the fans are going to take the side of the owner. So, what has this been like, Bobby, for you to kind of go through this process?
It's been and I think for me, I am not a confrontational person. I don't like conflicts. I really like to talk about numbers and the salary cap and roster building. And just talk about basketball. So it has been a interesting 10 days. When I went on TV, I think last Tuesday, when I talked, it wasn't coming from Bobby Marks standing on a mountain, raising his flag on the whole tanking thing. It was a discussion that I had with a lot of different teams about that, and it probably made it seem like it was coming just from me here. Certainly Thursday was interesting with after Utah had gotten fined, and I had made that comment, and on social media, and I thought it was the right comment to make. Where listen, you can find billionaires all you want. Teams will write blank checks for if you're going to drop in the top 3 or 4. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that until you start taking some roster resources away. So, of course, that got a response from Ryan, who I think he's a terrific owner. I mean, I don't need to talk about how great of an owner Ryan Smith is as far as what he's done for that community with hockey and basketball, certainly, and everything he does off the court there. So that drew that response, and I don't need to go. There's no need for me to go out on a social media, warfare with the owner of the Jazz. But I do what I do, have issue with is when there are certain people who have conspiracy theories out there, whether it be Woj, not working at ESPN anymore, and that's why I took a shot. I didn't take a shot at Jazz. Utah took the brunt of basically a lot of people's frustration, fair or unfair. I could have probably lumped 10 other teams in there with them. So I have an issue with conspiracy theories. I have an issue that I have a grudge against Danny and Austin Ainge from the 2013 Boston trade when I was in New Jersey. I saw it. Listen, I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I'm in a really better spot than I am 13 years. That job probably saved my marriage. It saved my mental health. It saved a lot of things. I actually could thank Danny for that and everything. So, yeah, it's been an interesting week. I had a guy at breakfast on. I was at All-Star. Came back Sunday morning. And asked me, like, I had never had him ask the question this before. He goes, "Hey, have you travel with security when you're on the road?" And I was like, "Is it that bad?" Man. Listen, I love Jazz. Jazz fans are the most passionate people out there. Are there some knuckleheads out there? Yeah, I mean, but there's with every sports team. So yeah, I don't. I just got to the point, and as I said, and some teams got to the point where. Enough's enough, right? Like that was the big thing. And if it wasn't me, I guess I said it for a lot of people, and I've taken the bows and arrows and stuff like that. So it is what it is. Utah is in a really good spot. They'll get a high pick. They have three good really players to build around. So yeah, it's been something. It's been something to the point where I haven't tweeted in 4 days, and I'm thinking people are going to probably want to think I'm suspended from ESPN. I'm not. I'm actually just thinking of giving up Twitter for Lent. So if you don't see me tweet until sometime in April, that's the reason why.
Well, as I often say, Bobby, the internet is where cowards go to feel brave, and it's good to take time off of that app. And as a former Twitter addict in recovery, I always recommend just kind of get offline for a little bit and just remember that it's not a real place. But I did want to not to give this more oxygen.
Sure.
But for
I think it's a healthy conversation. I really do. I mean, we had I went on SportsCenter last night. I was like, I got home from being on the road 2 weeks, and the first day up home, like, hey, we want NBA Today, SportsCenter, and like a podcast. I was like, oh my god. And we had a really healthy conversation last night on SportsCenter with Kevin Nagandi, and Wendy was on there too. And Brian has kind of taken a little bit of a different approach than I have, as far as Brian is like basically says, hey, it is what it is right now and stuff like that. And I get it. I get it is what it is, but don't we have an obligation to eventually change the rules? Like, it's not going to be this year, but eventually, where we don't have to incentivize losing for better draft picks, moving forward and everything. And I think that's probably where the discussion is. But as I said, like, listen, Utah took the brunt of what a lot of other teams have done in the past and are doing this year. I mean, you have a fair point when said, hey, Toronto did it last year. Nobody said boo, right? And that is a fair comment. And before you get going, I said it 2 weeks ago or a week ago on NBA Today during the trade deadline with Milwaukee and Giannis. And I said, listen, probably the best thing for Milwaukee is they probably just shut him down and they get a good draft pick here. So I can't say that and then basically kind of be contradict as far as what I'm saying and everything like that. But I do think we got to get to a point where we have to incentivize teams not just for losing anymore.
For sure. But what I was going to say is not to give this more oxygen, but we had Dave McMiniman on the day after kind of the Twitter stuff went down, and I didn't even know that Andy Larson had sent this out. But I wanted to give you the chance because a lot of people have honed in on this. I wanted to give you the chance to kind of unpack it. Andy tweets, maybe too inside baseball, but I can guarantee you the Ryan Smith, Bobby Marks situation this week does not happen in the Justin Zanuck running the Jazz, Adrian Wojnarowski running ESPN's NBA coverage era. To that, Bobby, you say what?
That's not true. Well, first, I didn't even know there was a situation until Andy tweeted it, and actually Chris Mannix sent me a text. So I had no idea what was going on Thursday night at all. I didn't even know Ryan had quote tweeted or whatever, and I didn't know Andy put that out. That's not true. And I said it to him, listen, if one of my sons was running the Jazz, I'd probably say the same thing. I have relationships with a lot of people in this league. I have a relationship with Justin just because I've known him for a long time. I know Danny, and I know a lot of those people in that front office. That's not true. That's not true at all. There are times when I hear from my friends because I say something that they're not agreeing with, and I get it. But that's not true at all as far as what Andy said.
Did you hear from anybody at the Jazz? I mean, obviously you don't have to share any of this with me, but whether it's Zanuck or you didn't. Okay.
Nope. The only time I heard was when Ryan had quote tweeted that.
Okay.
But no, I did not hear from. Usually, I would just say this: when I upset people, they usually call me.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, it's funny because a lot of people, and we had Smitty in last week, Richard Smith, who you know well, and a lot of people have asked, like, hey, what's the deal with this Bobby Marks guy? I'm like, he's the kindest guy. Like, I don't know, like, lay off of him, He's like the nicest dude in the world. I think, at least the way we've covered it here, Bobby, and I want to give you, the space to react to this, the Jazz deserve to get fined. In my opinion, the Jazz deserve to get fined. It's not that they've just done it this year. They've done some sort of semblance of this, quite frankly, for 4 years now. My issue is, why only the Jazz? I know the Pacers got $100K. Like, if you're going to fine the Jazz, you could probably point to at least 6, if not 8 or 9 other teams that are doing the same thing, just using maybe different philosophies.
No, I agree. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think, I mentioned, the Toronto situation a year ago when basically they took out guys towards the end of the game or in fourth quarter and rested guys that had played and treated it like kind of like a preseason game. That was if you're looking for another example, that's a reason why. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that are guilty for it. I think that's a question that the commissioner should answer as far as why only the Jazz. And the Indiana situation is interesting because, they get fined, I think, $100,000 for Pascal Siakam. Pascal's played in like 90% of his games this year. Like, so I understand the rules for the player participation policy here, but at the end of the day, the league has a lot, on their shoulders here because they've created the system. They've created the system where, whether it be the lottery, where you are incentivized to, if you are whether you're a smaller market team or you're a rebuilding team, that the best opportunity is to get a high draft pick in the draft. And teams are going to take an opportunity of that. I did it in New Jersey and Brooklyn. We all of us who have worked in a front office at one point had to have built, add through the lottery here. And the only way you're going to do that is with, getting a higher pick. I think we're in its perfect storm a little bit too, because this is a really good draft class. And certainly where Utah is, where their pick would go to Oklahoma City outside the top 8, and the same with the Wizards and some other teams out there here. But no, I'm with you on it. As I said, like Utah, I think everyone was like, yeah, we did it, but why are we the only one that's being called out on this?
Can you? So another really weird byproduct of this entire thing is there was a report that like Oklahoma City is complaining to the league. I don't think that's true, Bobby. I think that was an erroneous rumor started by somebody that somebody picked up on. I have a hard time believing Sam Presti would take 10 minutes out of his day to call the league office to complain about what the Jazz are doing. Any insight there?
I would agree with you. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are content that pick is not being conveyed to them there. I think they have an understanding of that there. So I agree with you here. I haven't talked to anybody from Oklahoma City. They didn't say, hey, this is what we want you to go on TV and talk about here. So I would, yeah, that's, certainly I understand why people would make that case where, they can get the Jazz pick and everything. But no, I don't believe that's true.
So you just alluded to something that I wanted to lean into, and just your thoughts on why is this suddenly getting so much attention? Yeah. It has been going on. I mean, there's one version where David Robinson was hurt. There's another version where Tim Duncan was a senior at Wake Forest. I mean, that was in 1996. Like, this is 30 years. Like, why do you think this has become such a hot button topic when this has been happening in this league for decades and decades and decades?
I think some of it has to do that the timing of it. Usually we probably see it more in maybe March and April, where we certainly have seen it before the All-Star break here. So you're looking at maybe in some cases earlier than that. I do think it is I don't want to say historic draft class, but I want to say probably one of the better draft class that we've seen in a long time. A lot of people are comparing it to the 96 class and the 03 class. So there is a priority for teams, as I said, for teams to retain their pick. I think that has to do with a lot of it also. But no, we've seen it, whether it be teams sending players home, whether it be teams shutting down players, whether it be, certainly the Wizards took an interesting approach this year when you trade for 2 All-Stars that are not healthy. That's something that kind of has drawn the the eyebrows of some teams and certainly probably people in the league if we're going to see those 2 for the rest of the season in Washington too. So yeah, it's, as you said, it's something that's been going on a long time, but it certainly has been highlighted a lot more as of late.
So we've had a lot of guests on the last few weeks talking about this. And I do try to do the show while, talking about the issues, but also trying to bring solutions in instead of just belly aching. Yeah. As long as you have a draft that incentivizes this approach, you will never curtail tanking altogether. Yeah. But of all of the options that have been thrown out there, are there any that you like the most that you think will at least kind of alleviate what appears to be a pretty big issue right now?
Yeah, and I've heard a lot. I've heard more from teams like just randomly texting me like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Ooh, that's pretty radical here." I'll say this: I don't think there's ever a scenario we're going to abolish the draft. I don't think that is on the table, and I don't think that's. I think that would be more of a wild, wild west, right? As far as imagine if AJ or Devante or Darren Peterson is basically technically a free agent, right? As far as the ability to go out and sign and play like that. So I don't think that is going to happen here. I think there's a couple I think that you have to put in rules where there's unintended consequences, right? So where a year from now or 2 years from now, this is not backfiring. Now, is it pick protection? The league has certainly talked about it internally with the competition committee regarding what I mean pick protection is. You can, protect the pick up to a certain amount. So instead of doing 1 to 8 like Utah did in that favors trade with Oklahoma City, now maybe it's a top 14 protected only. Is that a smaller solution here? I think that gets the conversation going. I've heard a lot of different things as far as, does the lottery standings get frozen at the at the midway point or at the All-Star break, and then your percentage increase and gets better as far as more combinations in a lottery, the more games you win after, February 5th, for example, here. So I think they're going to be, as I said, they're going to be talking about a lot of different options as far as what the league has done. I mean, they've come up with a lot of different things when you look at the play-in and the in-season tournament and things like that. And I do think there's going to be something there, probably more than, just altering pick protections.
All right. One more Jazz thing, and then we'll move off of it.
Sure.
Because ultimately, despite all the chaos with the conversation and the fine and everything else has gone down, Bobby, we're finally in a place in Salt Lake City where I think our team, our pro basketball team, will be front-facing about competing next year. And, in a truncated 3-game, 49-minute space, Jaren Jackson Jr. looked really good because he's awesome. I mean, he's a good player. And who knows what the draft lottery will bring. My guess is they are going to continue to do what they're doing to hold on to their asset. And I do want to be clear, that's what they probably should do. So what do you think success looks like for Utah next year? And again, we don't know who they're going to add in the draft.
Yeah, I would say they're probably in probably the best space they've been in prior to the trade.
Yeah.
Basically summer of 22.
Yep, 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years ago. I would say they're maybe even a better position here. And I know that roster was probably more established with Donovan and Rudy and Mike in that group there. But I think 3-game sample, the marketing, Jackson Jr., and then factor in you're figuring Kessler, as far as the 3 bigs there. That's pretty interesting. And then the rise of Keontae, and certainly what happens with Ace this summer and some of your younger players, and then you add a top pick, hopefully for them. That is a solid group of players there. Now it will be, you have to see how you play in long stretches there, but at the very worst, it's a team competing for it's a playing team. I mean, teams in the above them are going to be older, right? When you look at, I don't know what the Lakers are going to be. I don't know what Golden State's going to be. Can Phoenix duplicate what they did this year? Portland, some of those other teams, we kind of know where Denver and OKC and San Antonio will be. Minnesota probably too, but everyone else is kind of, it's up for grabs and everything like that. So I think if the pieces work, and I think the early indications are that it does, this will be a significantly, better team that we've seen in a long, long time here. And I think Will is a terrific coach, and he's going to get the most out of him. So I get why they made the Jaren trade. And I it's interesting that one of the picks could be their own pick next in 27. And I think they're betting on that they're going to have a team that can compete for a playoff spot.
All right, moving off the Jazz, and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Whenever you try to predict or guess what the future of the NBA is going to look like and what the next generation, will feature, who's going to be the next big thing. I've always just tried to look for something that isn't just dominant but also different. Yeah. And, LeBron was different than anybody we had seen. And obviously it was Mike for a long, long time. Then Kobe came along, and Kobe just played so much like Mike. It just wasn't different. LeBron became this generation's that dude. And the Wembanyama thing, Bobby, I've just never seen anything like it. I just haven't.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So what do you think? And also, he was the one that was the conduit to let's actually try hard during the All-Star game. Yeah. What would you say about your thoughts when you watch him play? What comes to mind? And is it time to say that San Antonio is not coming, San Antonio is here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was not planning on watching the All-Star game on Sunday. I needed to get away from this.
Sure, yeah.
And then I get a text from Wimby, and he's like, "Hey, can you come on my podcast tonight?" I was like, "Okay, I guess I got to watch the All-Star game." And I'm glad I did because I thought Victor, I don't want to say saved it, but he set the tone. He set the tone based on what he said before the game. He set the tone with a dunk off the bat and a block shot off the bat, and it raised the intensity as far as everyone else, as far as what they were able to do. It's a shame that they basically kind of ran out of bodies with Luka and Jokic, and there was no Shea and Giannis here because I thought that world team could be really good here. He is something special here because the ability to play both sides of the court. People will pick apart his game, whether he takes more threes and he should be down low. I think he's still evolving to figure out kind of who he is. We will hear a lot about San Antonio, and the thing that people will probably talk about is that this team is so young and that they've never been through anything before with Harper and Victor and Castle, and they only have a little bit of veteran experience with Fox and Barnes and Olynyk and Cornette as far as playoff experience here. But I'm excited to watch them grow. I really am. And I've been on teams that I was on a team that went to an NBA Finals, and we had no playoff experience except Jason Kidd here. So I am excited. And I think what I've seen, and certainly what we've seen this year, it's something that's special that I probably haven't seen in a long time.
So before I say you lose, it does feel like, and I don't think anybody would bet against Oklahoma City, even though San Antonio's had great success against them in the regular season. I just watching what OKC did a year ago. If they get everybody back, I think they're going to be hard to beat out this way. I'll never dismiss a team that has Nikola Jokic. And I mean, if you have LeBron and Luka, you probably have a chance to do something. But let me ask you about the East, Bobby, before I say you lose, because Dennis Lindsey, of course, our old buddy out here, is now in Detroit. And, early on, if you do this job that I do, you just do a lot of football until football's over. And so I wasn't necessarily watching a ton of Piston basketball. I know at the end of last year they started to play better and maybe they had some hope. And then I watched them dismantle New York, just like dismantle. Exactly. And so I was actually texting with Dennis. I'm like, this is real, man. And now, I'm always hesitant to say, okay, that's the team if I've never seen them do it before in the postseason. But is it Detroit's conference to win? I don't know if Tatum's coming back. Then the Knicks are there, and the Cavs have made some adjustments as well. So your thoughts on Detroit, and then who you like in the East?
It should be. I mean, they've been the most consistent team. They're the team that's not going on. New York had a little bit of a losing streak, and Cleveland, has been up and down. They made those additions, and Boston's been a great story. But as you said, I don't know if Tatum is coming back, but Detroit has an identity of their head coach in J.B. Bickerstaff, who's hard-nosed. We've all seen the highlights of the fight, but they've played with an edge and a toughness all year. Cade is having an all-NBA season. The question is, do they need another ball handler? Do they need some more perimeter shooting? You lost Beasley and Hardaway, and you lost Schroeder, and you replaced them with LeVert, Duncan Robinson. You got Kevin Huerter at the deadline here. And Tobias Harris has been really consistent as a kind of that veteran here. But I would say it's their conference to lose because as I said, I think they're the most consistent team. They'll have home court. I didn't even realize until they put a graphic up that they have the best record in the NBA right now, better than Oklahoma City, which is pretty amazing here. So listen, the East is going to be interesting because as we said all along, New York and Cleveland will be judged as far as what they do in April, May, and June. Based on where they were a year ago. And outside of that, I don't know if there's another wild card. Philly is interesting, but, they got to be right and they got to be healthy. Some of those teams that are in the play-in, whether it be Miami or Atlanta or Orlando, Charlotte's a great story, but they're just trying to get in the play-in. I don't see them as teams that can compete with some of the top teams there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for the time.
I appreciate you allowing me to give some therapy on a Tuesday afternoon.
You've got a lot of fans out this way too, Bobby. And
there was a guy. I don't really read like direct messages. I forgot what the guy's name is. There was a Jazz fan that sent me a direct message, and it was one of the nicest things they've ever said. So I will say this: 99.9% of Jazz fans are terrific people. That 0.01, but that's with every fan base there. Indeed, Bobby. Well, look, like I said, you've got a lot of fans out here. I'm one of them. Thank you for your time, sir. Have a good week, okay? Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you.
All right, Bobby Marks, ESPN NBA front office insider. I think we squashed the beef. I think we're able to bring him on, okay, do a little therapy, give him the space. See, when you do this job, what you want to do is give the space and then just listen. Okay, so you ask the question and then let him go, get it out. Okay, trauma dump, if you will, for the youngsters these days. process, right? And I think we landed in a good place where hopefully everybody out here loves Bobby Marks again.
Also a perfect encapsulation of why I like radio and not television as much.
Yeah.
Because you just, it's like Twitter. You can't get it all out in your 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes that you get on your teleprompter, your TV, your pre-scripted talking points and topics. We can have a 40-minute conversation, and you probably agree with them more than you don't.
And that's why I never engage on social media. There's no point. You're never going to make headway there. You are banging your head against the wall. You are arguing with mentally ill people.
You are a TV guy now, though, so.
That's true. But that's different than social media. Although I do have to post videos now, and it's just, I don't love it, but I'm doing it. Is Falk live in studio?
Yes.
All right. Fun 3 o'clock
Allegedly.
hour ahead. We'll see. Aaron Falk, sports editor, question mark? For the Salt Lake Tribune's going to join us live in studio. We got Zach Harper, Pablo Mastroeni, busy Tuesday show. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Oh, we should have let Aaron choose his walk-up song. Good stuff from Bobby Marks today. We're now friends with Bobby again. I thought we brought him in, did a little therapy, and now there's love between the Jazz community and Bobby Marks. But let's welcome now live in studio, sports editor from the Salt Lake Tribune, Aaron Falk. Hello, sir. How are you?
Great. Well, I was going to retire, but I didn't get Bobby's 401k, so we'll have to wait.
I know you were in the other room, so you didn't hear it. I asked him directly about Andy's tweet. And look, Bobby's not going to come on the show and be like, yeah, totally, he was right. But he fundamentally objected to Andy's assertion that once upon a time, if things were different, this is not how that would have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and who can say for sure?
Yeah.
But obviously, there are relationships. That's how the entire NBA operates, and I think Andy trying to connect some dots there, and Bobby to his credit, you got to take him at his word that that's how he operates, and that's how he operates.
I would love like a very honest moment with Justin Zanuck these days, just to kind of, and look, there are 30 teams in this league. A high-level front office job is a hard job to get. So I'm not saying that. I don't know, man. I just felt like once upon a time, he was the front runner for so many GM jobs, almost took the Milwaukee job, finally gets the gig here. And, Dennis leaves, and you kind of feel like, all right, Zanuck's going to have the chance to kind of run the show a little bit. And then Ryan brings in Danny, and now Ryan didn't talk to Danny about bringing in Austin, but brought in Austin. That was one of my favorite parts of that press conference. I didn't even talk to DA. All right, dude. And so now Zanuck, I don't know what the role is, but certainly Bobby and Jay-Z are close. Do you have any insight on what Justin Zanuck is doing over there these days?
I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think just taking what Ryan Smith has said publicly, the Justin was obviously a very good agent, law background, and really understands the ins and outs of cap and getting these deals done, and he's really good with people, and doing all that. So my understanding was, can we magnify that skill set from him while we take Austin, who we believe has all the basketball acumen and can find gems in places we hadn't considered, and that sort of a thing, and that's going to be his role. And so to your point, Justin has one of the very few jobs that exists at that level.
Yep.
And you do everything you can to keep it, especially if you're happy. If you're unhappy, I guess things get blown up. But it seems to me he's still in a pretty good place there. Yeah,
it's the same thing every time I talk about, hey, I wonder if Will's frustrated. Probably, but he also has a 6-year runway where he's being paid millions of dollars to coach basketball. But let's stay in the space because, off air we were talking about this. The Jazz have become, over the past 3-4 weeks, this massive talking point nationally. I've done a bunch of hits across the country just because I do radio in Salt Lake, and they want to talk Jazz. And, we just had Bobby Marks on, and Bobby, of course, uttered the phrase, compromising the integrity or what have you, I'm paraphrasing there, that caught the ire of Ryan Smith, who decided to use his socials to go at Bobby Marks. I can tell you, once upon a time, if David Stern was the commissioner, Ryan would have had a phone call 5 minutes later and probably be fined, like Stern did to Mark Cuban once upon a time. Cuban actually tweeted about this today. My take is well documented because people listening to the show have heard me talk about it. But what do you make of this whole dynamic, the NBA and teams that lose intentionally, like the Jazz, in the name of keeping their draft capital?
Yeah, well, I think everybody knows the rules, and everyone wants to find where the edges of those rules are. There's no reason for the Utah Jazz to give up a first-round draft pick, right? There's no reason to get into a position where you lose a draft pick and are somehow miss the play-in in the process. That serves none of your interests. So, of course, they're going to figure out a system. Now, I think, I've talked to people who completely disagree with me and say that what they did by sitting players in the fourth quarter was obviously worse than the traditional load management. So if someone plays one game out of 4, that's a higher level of integrity than 3/4 of every game.
Yeah, that's silly.
I mean, I think it's foolish. And I do think there is obviously some gambling prediction market considerations that maybe motivate certain people. I think the NBA. I think Adam Silver probably wanted to make a statement just before he goes to All-Star Weekend, where he's going to get all of these questions in a press conference. So can I make a strong statement just before then? Mm-hmm. However, in doing that, he fined a team for winning an NBA basketball game, which is insane.
Yeah.
And, I think the league has let this get out of control. They're going to try to rein it in. Great, but to use the Jazz as the like poster child for this feels a little off to me.
Yeah, for sure. Non sequitur. Jenny Garth was just on TV doing a skincare commercial. Do you remember Jenny Garth, 90210?
Absolutely.
Massive crush on Jenny Garth back in the day. Were you a 90210 guy? Now you strike me more as like Melrose Place, or maybe you're too young.
I was a little young.
That's right.
I was aware, like I watched, but I'm like, I had feelings, but I'm like, I didn't understand them yet.
Okay, you may have been, because Kamrani last week, we basically did the entire show paying homage to James Vanderbeek, who passed. Yeah. So Dawson's Creek, is that more your speed, or like your age group, I would guess, as an old millennial?
Probably.
Okay.
Katie Holmes, Michelle Williams.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Anyway, moving on. I just hadn't seen Jenny Garth in a number of years. So here's how I phrased it. I'll paraphrase, because, again, I've been blabbing about this now for a week. I think the Jazz deserve to be punished. I think the Jazz deserve what they got. They haven't just been doing it this year. They've been doing it in one way, shape, or form for 4 years. The issue to me is this year, the number might be 10 total teams. It might be 6 or 7. Dallas, maybe they have a different argument. Like, if you go down the list of teams who I believe the rest of the way are not serious about winning games, I think the list is 10. Reasonable minds can disagree. My issue is, how are you only punishing the Jazz? Punish the Jazz. They deserve it. Like, and the other thing I'm just not here for is the NBA hates us because we're Utah. The NBA, like, it's so boring. Shut up. No, the NBA is not punishing you because you're a small market. Like, it's as boring as the lottery is rigged. But why only the Jazz? That's my issue.
Yeah, I still stand by. I think they wanted to do something before All-Star, before we get to the stretch run of the season. They want to make a statement, and these are the most egregious outliers that happened just before that.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah.
That being said, it does feel a bit selective in its punishment that the Spurs invent load management. They are rewarded with multiple number one picks.
Right.
Toronto did the same thing. Everyone does the same thing.
Yeah.
And I understand why fans are up in arms. And to add to that, as you have talked me down when you've checked in on my mental health when I've tweeted.
Shout out cheese fries.
Ryan Smith opened that door.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He whether he knew it or not, by being one of the biggest voice that could have jumped in and said something, he let everyone else jump in and say something.
Yeah.
And the pitchforks go up. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't want that kind of reaction, then you can't kind of cause that kind of reaction. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks in that regard. But I think the NBA is right to do something, but fining the Jazz and the Pacers alone feels like it missed the mark.
Yeah, $500,000's a lot of money. I don't care how much money you have. $500,000's that's not nothing. That's a sizable fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't. To Ryan's point, I don't know what that feels like. I'll never know what that.
Right. I do find it interesting. Like, if I put myself, whenever like a Ryan Smith or Kevin Durant, whenever one of these guys claps back on Twitter, I'm like, what are you doing even looking at the app, dude? Like, aren't you playing golf at Pebble Beach with Tony Finau right now? Like, yeah, the fine sucks, and also it's quite a choice for an NBA owner to publicly on his social media platform be critical of a fine. Like I said, if Stern's the commissioner, he's called. I don't really know if Adam Silver has the same heavy-handed approach as David Stern did. honestly, it might be time to admit that Adam Silver might not be as good at this as we thought. Like, he entered the league at a perfect time. It was the Donald Sterling situation, not the guy that used to work for the Jazz. He's a sweet man. The Donald Sterling LA Clipper owner situation. There was an unbelievably well produced show on Fox about this. Did you ever see that, by the way? It was so bad. Don't watch it. But it was like the perfect situation for him to step into because it was it was a layup. Okay. All you had to do is get rid of the bad old racist guy and suddenly, yes, our new leader. But now that we're years removed from that, I don't know what Adam Silver's approach is, but I would be curious to what his thoughts were when somebody sent him Ryan's reaction. Usually that's frowned upon in the NBA ecosystem if an owner is critical like that.
I think it's probably frowned upon in most ecosystems. I mean, there are the way that we do things and the way we don't do things, and that would certainly seem to feel outside of those lines. That being said, Ryan's one of 30 people that can make really have an impact if someone believes Adam Silver's not the right guy, right?
Yep.
So we'll see.
Yeah, Pat Riley, I remember Pat Riley said this thing, I was like 15 or 16, and it's always kind of stuck with me. He said, what we all have to understand is the NBA is the corporation, okay? And we are all entities under their umbrella. We have to be good partners with them. So once upon a time, the commissioner, it felt like the commissioner was definitely, more feared, more respected, or whatever it is. But I wanted to transition over here because I was talking about this during the opening tip today. I know you're a big fan. We'll send you the entire clip later. Because the NBA now has clearly leaned into, and I think this is probably Adam Silver and people around him who have decided to go in this direction, young people consuming their product, okay? And so I'm watching All-Star Weekend, and back in the day, media availability for All-Star Weekend used to be really cool. It used to be fun because you had media members credentialed who could ask intelligent adult questions, and you'd get oftentimes intelligent responses from Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson or Greg Popovich or Pat Riley, whatever it is. It used to be a place where you could learn about the league. I'm tuning in this year, and there are influencers asking Devin Booker about his aura. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then come to find out, the NBA is contacting these influencers to bring them in. Like your boy Drewski was part of an event whipping chess passes to some players and stuff. They're catering towards the youngs, man. The NBA is looking to be consumed by young people, and they're not making any apologies about it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say every All-Star that I've ever gone to, going back to 2013, so a long time, but maybe not that long. There weren't influencers, but there were bloggers.
Yeah.
Every availability was, yes, like, let me get a serious question in. Someone from an international meeting, like, will you shout out, our hometown and station in Italy?
Yeah.
And then someone asking, Kevin Love, like, if he were a tree, what tree he would be, right? Or, like that. I think there's always been an element of that in All-Star, but the NBA is now hiring those people to create that content, whereas it was sort of an organic thing, and people were probably slapping their foreheads like, did we credential these people? And now they are on the payroll.
Yes, and they want them to further the message using their platforms. Like, I've just come to the conclusion that they don't give a rip that some 47-year-old talk show host for another few weeks complains about their regular season. They don't care about the people that talk about load management. They don't care about the people that talk about tanking. They care about the 17-year-old who's on his phone and wants to see a Giannis dunk. They care about the teenager or the young college student who's on his phone and wants to see a Steph 3 or a Wembanyama block, because that same person is not going to sit down and watch Milwaukee, San Antonio and be like, oh, what? Gobert is sitting again? I've had it. Like, they're leaning into this highlight YouTube social media approach, and that's how they want their league consumed. I'm convinced of it.
Well, I mean, I think, I believe that they saw that this is the way that it's trending, and now they're trying to make sure that they are out, capitalizing on that, because, I've done this, for a while. I worked for the Jazz for a while, and even during that time, you get numbers. Young people aren't watching a game from start to finish. They're watching highlights. They watch they watch it on YouTube. They watch it, like you said, it is a highlight-driven thing. And so, we're kind of at a place now, and Adam Silver also talking about how they're going to create AI experiences where everyone has this really individualized experience. Really going to be an interesting time for sports fans, because the way you grew up watching a game, everyone having the same experience, everyone, start to finish, caring about the ins and outs, and you consider yourself a serious sports fan. Well, now we're going to have a real highlight-driven group. We're going to have maybe people that are in their, individual AI experience group, and we're going to have sports bettors.
Yeah.
Like that's what's going to drive a lot of decisions in the next half a decade.
To your final category there, I don't think any of us fully understand how much of that is driving so much of the conversation. And these prediction markets, man, I mean, I was watching 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago because I'm an intellectual. It's not a big deal. And that's when I first learned about Kalshi. And I was like, oh, what is this? And I downloaded it.
You mean the company that Giannis Antetokounmpo owns?
Yes, or has a portion of it or whatever after creating a smoke screen and then, sending out his tweet, right?
Let's get Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame yesterday.
Dude, seriously. I mean, with where all this has gone, the prediction market stuff is wild, and there's so much money that and I just hate this conversation because, like, they should shorten the calendar. They should play 72 games. But they probably won't, because that's taking 10 games a year or whatever, each team, from their media partners, and they just signed a $72 billion media deal. But it's like, all right, so next year, instead of making $68 million, Giannis makes 64. Can we make do with that? Like, I'm a grown-up. I know all of this is tied to revenue generated by a front-facing entertainment business. But this gambling stuff and what I think it's done to compromise these leagues, I don't know, man. I don't know how this is going to play out. I think it's a bad thing. That's what I'll say.
I mean, it's a bad thing for the leagues. It's certainly a bad thing for our society.
Absolutely.
We do not yet know the full scope of how bad this is going to be for a lot of people who develop addiction, who become bankrupt, become lives destroyed because of the over-under on a Keanu Dawes rebound bet, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be bad.
Because the problem is, the worst thing that could happen to you, I'll tell you a quick anecdote, okay? I had never thrown cards before. I'd never played blackjack my entire life. And we were driving to go spend spring break in San Diego from Salt Lake with friends of mine that were at the U. And I had like a couple $100. We're young, you don't have a ton of money. And you're like, I got to make this last for the week. We stop in Vegas. I'd never played blackjack. I was with some of the older guys that had played before. I'm like, yeah, sit down and, here's how you play. And I won like $150 in 10 minutes and ran to the car. And I was like, sweet. My spring break experience just improved. The problem is, if you have a good experience gambling early on, you suddenly believe that it's easy to the point where you start chasing things, and next thing you know, you've lost like 10 grand.
Right.
You got to be really careful.
Well, and imagine now, okay, you're getting into that car with your $250 that you wanted a sports book, and you're headed to San Diego, and you're happy, and you're going to get some fish tacos. Except that between Vegas and San Diego, you also have your phone.
Exactly.
You don't even have to go back to the casino.
Right.
It's in your pocket. People don't even have to know what you're doing. It can be that discreet, and you are going to lose that $250 plus another grand, and we're chasing it. And by the time you get to San Diego, it's a really bad spring break.
Yeah, the percentage that I think the Athletic reported is 70% of college-age males have a sportsbook app on their phone. Because the other problem is, one of these jabronis hits like a $15,000 parlay and walks into the frat house, and he's like, hey, boom, look at this. Wait, if Broccoli Rob over here can do this, then I certainly can do it too, right? And then everybody's going to download DraftKings and try to do it. It's essentially winning the lottery. Somebody does win the lottery, but it doesn't mean you're also going to win the lottery.
And they have it is so insidious in that you might have maxed out your credit cards and your whatever. You have no money in your account, and DraftKings is going to be like, "Oh, here's $25." Like, let's get you back.
Oh man, I remember talking to a guy that ran a sports book a number of years ago, before it was legal. It's okay for me to talk about this now. He ran his business through Puerto Rico, okay, and somehow was able to do this offshore thing where he ran a sports book and made a ton of money. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, these people are worse than heroin addicts. This is the easiest way to make money because these people are worse than heroin addicts. They always come back. So, yeah, to your point, you've wiped out the savings. You've probably maxed out a credit card. But that one little hope that this $25 is the one that you put on the 18 parlay to get you back in the game is going to keep you coming back. And it is the slipperiest of slopes, if that's a word.
And Giannis Antetokounmpo cannot be profiting from this.
No. It's wild.
There has to be a really clear line drawn there.
It's wild, man. All right. We'll catch a break. Coming up on the other side, we'll switch gears. Unfortunate situation down in BYU with Parker Kingston. Gordon, I thought, wrote a really good piece on this. I want to get to that with you. And then an announcement of sorts. We'll talk about that, what you're doing next. Aaron Falk live in studio. Keep it here on ESPN 700. We got Zach Harper on the show today. He'll join us coming up at 4 o'clock. Pablo Mastroeni, my guy Pobs, on the show today. Aaron Falk live in studio for one more segment. You have a thought on the lads? You know we're here for the lads.
Yeah, I have no thoughts because I don't. I mean, this is a ton of turnover.
It is.
I'm excited to see it. Like, clearly, the setup last year had a pretty clear ceiling, and so no judgment. Want to see it play out, but happy to see Gonzalez gone. Wasn't, as you know, I wasn't on Cruise Island either.
No, you were not. No, you were not.
So I think, I was here for some turnover, and at the very least, while it can get worse, they were a team that got into the playoffs. I'm not trying to discredit that. Certainly, there's a way to go down, but it seemed like it was capped. The ceiling was pretty clear.
It did. Trey thinks they're a contender for MLS Cup this year, just so you know.
First year he's ever thought that?
No, I mean, we got to just support our guy and his enthusiasm. 14 mil is the number that's being thrown around as far as spend goes. Now, compared to some of the larger clubs in the league, that's still peanuts, but I believe it will be a club record for money spent on talent.
Sounds bold, and fortune favors the bold.
Oh, I'm on my feet. I yell it out. I shout it out, Real. So we'll see. RSL on the way. All right. So I've taken a part-time job with my friends over at KUTV. And part of the agreement is me posting clips from the shows onto my social channels, which I don't love, but happy to do. Part of the deal, you're in the business, you got to do what you got to do. So the Parker Kingston situation, of course, really good football player, was coming back, I think, for one more year. But statistically, he was even better than Chase Roberts last year. He was their wide receiver 1. The story comes down that he has been arrested, right? And initially, he was held without bail. And I did not go to law school, but that kind of put my antennas up. I'm like, man, and then the charges are very serious. I mean, Parker is facing some very, very serious charges. Now, unfortunately, in this day and age of people who use the internet to be brave, there's really nothing you can say about this that won't get you criticized, right? My whole thing is like, I don't view this as a football story. I don't think it's a good look for Ute fans to dunk on BYU fans because of a rape charge, just like I didn't think it was a good look for BYU fans to dunk on Utah fans because 2 players were killed from gun violence. And yes, this does, in my opinion, bring out the side of this rivalry thing that I don't necessarily love. Ultimately, there is an alleged victim who has brought some very serious charges to Parker. But I also believe, and this is lost in some spaces in America now, as a citizen of this country, you're supposed to be allowed due process for the legal thing to play out. I don't really know what else to say about it. I don't know what about any of those things, but apparently some of the things I've said has really upset some people. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Aaron, tell me what you think.
Yeah, I think, and we do this as a country with every, case or investigation. My fiance is currently obsessed with the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, and so she's trying to solve that. Here's the truth. Outside of these people, Parker and this woman and whatever witnesses and police, you don't know what happened. You can't know what happened. Everything is pure speculation, and so all this will play out in court. Now, I think, and that's the due process that you're talking about, right? And everyone that's on message boards saying horrific things knows nothing about what happened. What this woman did, what he did. Everyone is just saying things because we are now in a society where we have to say things, even though we don't know anything. But it is an extremely serious allegation that police investigated for over a year, it would seem, before charges were brought. And while that he is afforded that due process in a criminal justice matter, he is not necessarily afforded or owed that from BYU, who quickly expelled him. And that's where things stand. It's really hard to talk about because, like I said, nobody knows, and I don't mean that to say that to diminish an allegation or anything of that nature. Far from it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is the allegation that was brought to police. We know what she said, What he has said, that he said it was any sexual activity was consensual, which it would be enough to probably get you expelled from BYU in that admission alone. And the rest gets played out in the court, and we probably should not be playing judge and jury before that.
Yeah, and that's the complicated part of this because, if you say he deserves due process, there are voices that yell, oh, you're standing up for a rapist. And it's like, no, I'm not. We don't know what's happened. There have been plenty of cases. The Matt Ariza kid, the punter, right, who I think I'm saying that name right. There was an accusation. He was actually, I think they went through the entire process. He lost his job. And then it came out later on that she made it up. Like, those things do happen. I'm not saying that's happening here. I'm saying those things have happened before. And then on the other side, there are, like, people that are mad because they're football fans that are yelling at her.
Right.
Right? I mean, the whole thing is just so ugly.
Right, yeah. That's why we truly are not privy to the information that is going to decide the outcome of this case, and that's what it's going to play out in the courtroom.
Right.
Now, now we can talk BYU. I think any institution would be wise once an allegation has been made. Yes, that there is due process, and that's going to play out in the court. I think you're wise to say, hey, we're not going to play this person. Even if you retain him on a roster, this person now sits out because we don't know the outcome. We also are unaware of how this plays out. So you're not going to be on our field representing our institution in the meantime, and maybe you come back to that later on. I think there is a thought that and this it ties in with cancellation and all these things, that you are afforded or owed the opportunity to be a Division I football player or a celebrity or any of these things. No, you're owed a fair trial and a fair court proceeding.
Right.
Everything else is privilege.
So
that's to me where it makes sense that BYU would say we're not gonna let you represent our university in the meantime.
100%. I do wonder, and again, we're just discussing possibilities, zero clue. But I thought Gordon and exchanged some text with him. I thought Gordon wrote a really good piece, and his whole take on the statement, which I believe was adjusted after Gordon released his piece, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I want you to walk us through this because BYU released a statement that said, quote, it became aware of the arrest. And my instant thought was, you did not say you just became aware of the investigation, because this happened a year ago. Okay. And so my understanding is after Gordon pointed this out, BYU then decided to either change the wording of their statement or send out something else to say that they became aware of the investigation. There are reports that BYU police was working in conjunction with police in St. George. I don't know, man. I have a hard time believing that nobody down there caught wind of something as serious as this.
Yeah. So the timeline of this, the allegation is said to have happened in February of 25.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4 days later is when she goes to the hospital and tells police.
Mm-hmm.
And there are gaps in, but this is just based on what's written in the court document. So not saying that this is the only other contact, but the next date that's in the court document is that she has some conversations in June of 2025 with police, and then that's when they start to maybe there's a question of Parker Kingston. It's not really clear when he was first interviewed, when and I saw that report that BYU police were involved. And it's not really clear exactly when. We're trying to figure out, get a firm date on that as well. I will say the Salt Lake Tribune won a Pulitzer Prize a handful of years ago, talking about BYU police and bad practices with the honor code.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was there were certain folks who would interview even victims of sexual assault, and then kind of break a firewall to discuss these things with the university.
Mm-hmm.
So you could, which I think we can all say is a bad practice.
For sure, yeah.
So I think you could say if they were to involve BYU police, I think, instinctively you think maybe there's a line of communication between BYU police and someone within the athletics department to give them heads up. Maybe not. We don't know that yet.
Yeah.
It's something we can't prove at this point.
Yeah. Well, and that's important to point out, which is why I wanted to ask you. It just, it's always hard to really dig into what is actually real compared to what we're actually being told. And it's hard to believe that if BYU police were involved in this investigation that started a year ago, now to your point, some of the records indicate the conversations escalated in June. You make the most important point. We do not know what happened, and I want to underscore that. So the gap between your spidey senses going off and finding something out is still there, right? So as somebody who does this for a living, what are some of the steps you pursue to try to kind of find out actually what's real?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, you go through what I would say the front door, call people, talk to them. Hey, Washington County's Attorney's Office, you said you worked with BYU police. When? And, did you work with anyone else, at the university, the athletic department, et cetera? Maybe they say, you'll hear a lot. Won't discuss an ongoing investigation, even though it's charges, like it is an ongoing case. So, okay, maybe that's the case. There are public record laws, and you, even as a private citizen, are entitled to use these. In Utah, it's called GRAMA, Government Records Access Management Act, and you can, there are certainly protections. FERPA, you can't ask for someone's medical history or even their student, their grades or something like that. There are obviously a bunch of protections, but maybe there are communications between the Washington County's Attorney's Office and someone at BYU, and you could find that out through a records request potentially. And so you're talking to people, asking for public records. There's a way to try to figure out the truth and to say, one way or the other, what happened and when happened, and who knew what and when.
It was pretty wild, I don't know, 3-4 days, because I was down in Provo for the BYU Houston game. Enjoyed a lovely fresca with some cherry flavoring. Definitely had some creamery ice cream after my lovely buffet dinner. I did the whole experience. It was lovely. It was a great game. And on the Jumbotron, they show Parker Kingston as he has proposed to his girlfriend, and they're now engaged. And I saw him after the game walking around. I'm like, oh, yeah, Parker. And then I was sitting here like 2 days later, and this news comes down, and it's just hard to kind of wrap your mind around. But I wanted to go back to the fact that Gordon points out BYU did not say they became aware of the investigation. They became aware of the arrest. And then after Gordon points this out, they decide to go back and, I don't know what the term is, retract, add to the statement.
Yeah, could be clarification.
Okay.
In my mind, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're changing their story.
Uh-huh.
Someone wrote a press release and a statement at that point, and maybe they didn't think it all the way through, and they said, yes, we are aware of the arrest of Parker Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take them probably at face value a little bit, that especially now if they're coming back and saying we didn't know. I would assume that at least the people writing that statement, that's true for them. Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Let me move over here though. I talk about this quite a bit in whatever you do for a living, whatever you do for your job. It's the most important thing for you. So sometimes you think it's the most important thing for everybody. And we do this in sports a lot. And I always reference the conversation that I'm quite sure still takes place at a radio station that I don't work at anymore, where if an honor code violation affects an athlete, you'll hear a jock crack a mic and say, they need to change the honor code. And it's like, dude, they're not doing that. I've always laughed at that assertion that because your buddy who plays for BYU is suspended for a few games, you think the school is going to change their entire ethos. They're not going to, right? So if we pan back from just the sports prism of this and the coverage of this story, which is hard to talk about other than let it play out. And if you want to go on a football angle, BYU loses a really good player, okay? But as Gordon points out, Kennard Davis arrest, I didn't know much about this baseball player story, but woo baby, obviously that's a horrible thing as a former BYU baseball player is accused of child sexual assault charges, pled guilty to a lesser charge. Camden Dean Dale, I think. So I do think it's fair to ask and wonder out loud, the folks who are actually in charge of running Brigham Young University, some of whom are sports fans, some of whom probably could care less, and all of whom believe it all should be about one thing, which is furthering the message of the LDS Church. How do you think stuff like this is landing with them? I mean, what sort of questions do you think are being asked right now?
Yeah, I mean, pure speculation to and guesswork to get inside, that room and inside those heads. But I think you kind of hit it on the head. There are certainly people that will view the athletics program as an incredible tool for marketing, for they would say missionary work, and that it is an overall net positive for the university and for the faith. I'm sure there are people out there that you listed off 4 names, and I couldn't pull them up right now, but I know there was a former I believe diver at the U. There are these stories at the U.
There are, yeah,
but it doesn't have the same backdrop of the honor code of someone standing. There. In those cases, it's not there's a systemic issue. It's individuals did a bad thing. And at BYU, that's also, I think, probably the truth. But you have the backdrop of what the mission is and the honor code and what the aspirational nature of BYU is in BYU athletics. So that's why it stands so starkly. But I'm sure people are going to have that conversation. You could get rid of the athletics program and say we don't want that kind of publicity anymore, and there could still be 4 people at BYU that do all the same things.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? They're just not lifted up as an athlete and some sort of celebrity, which we're all kind of complicit in creating that celebrity, right?
Yeah.
So you go back and forth. To me, as the LDS Church believes in agency, and I think you probably look at it and say we can't control every person. Hundreds of athletes. We can't be responsible now. So I don't. In no world do I think they're going to shut down the honor code or shut down the athletics program.
Right.
I don't think either of those things actually happen. Now I think they feel embarrassment, they feel frustration and anger that this is getting headlines and drawing negative attention. But at the end of the day, how can you control for everything?
You can't, and it's a good point, and I've always said it as well. And it's certainly not only a BYU thing at all. Like anytime a football player gets in trouble in any institution, the head coach gets a bunch of crap. But you can't babysit 100+ kids all day, every day. At some point, they're going to go out. They're going to be college kids. They're going to make dumb choices. It's part of growing up. But the other element is this, and it's always interesting because I view this through the Notre Dame prism as well. A good friend of mine who actually worked at RSL, Notre Dame guy, has done well, and he donates a lot of money to Notre Dame in the name of believing that Notre Dame embodies his faith, not just the football team. This is important because my faith is important to me. This is why I pay them money. I love Notre Dame football. I love Notre Dame basketball, but I will write them checks because they represent who I am. It's weird to call this a competitive advantage. I want to acknowledge that as I say it out loud, but when it comes to religious institutions, if your donor base is comprised of people who believe if they give you money, it's going to further the message that makes their life meaningful, you're going to be able to generate more money via people writing checks. At what point does this potentially compromise that? If you're a BYU fan and you're saying, wait a second, I donated $500,000 last year, and I turn on the football preview show, and it's Jake Retzlaff, and now I'm turning on the news to see Parker Kingston. At what point do people who donate to Brigham Young start asking questions?
Yeah, I mean that's again that's going to be an individual question for a lot of different people, and it's kind of funny. Kevin Reynolds wrote a story in the fall, just sort of looking at the comments that Clark Gilbert made once upon a time about we'll never be the highest bidder for an athlete. The mission falls apart when we do that, and and then in the months and years after those comments, obviously the donor base really ignited, and BYU really found kind of a special moment, getting AJ, bringing in a bunch of talent on the football team. And so he wrote a story kind of looking at that, the decision and how they kind of balance, those Clark Gilbert's words and that, reality of putting athletics not first, but pumping money into athletics and really caring about it. And there were a lot of people that said, this is ridiculous. There's not one person in the church who believes that that this is a bad thing for the church. Everyone believes that BYU athletics is good for the church. That's not true.
No,
there are people with very different opinions, and I'm sure at various levels of decision making. So to the original question about when does the donor base, it's hard to know, because everybody it just depends on your own threshold for fandom and pain and why you're doing something. And so it's just everybody is going to be different. It's just a really weird situation.
I think I find what I perceive to be intellectual dishonesty very offensive. Like, don't tell me I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, especially when it's reported from other outlets. Especially when Scott Drew was like, yeah, Rob signed $1 million contract to come back. Here's the signature. And then 2 weeks later, he gets $3 million from BYU and he leaves. Like, we know that happened. We know that there's enough of a smokescreen here. It's kind of like Will Hardy saying Lowry had a minute restriction. Okay, probably not, but whatever. There's enough, maybe a kernel of truth, where now I've got to go talk to the sports med guy. Do I believe you? No, but I'm not going to call you a liar either. So there's maybe they weren't the highest bidder for AJ DeBonsa, but they are paying him $5 to $7 million for 5 to 6 months of basketball. So when you see the Clark thing, dude, was offensive, in my opinion. Don't tell me that we're not seeing what we're seeing. And then I think it leads people to question other parts of the messaging. Like, if you're going to really, and I'm not going to say lie, I think that's too strong, but if you're going to be intellectually dishonest here, what else is in play about what you're not being fully transparent concerning, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I mean, we also heard from people who at the time said Clark doesn't really represent that. That's one man's thoughts.
Yeah,
and he's not someone that is a decision maker there. Well, one, he was, and two, now he's in the quorum of the 12 apostles, and he's an influential person. That's where. Not even from internally, but from fans that kind of divorce themselves from the facts, and it just becomes so tribal that I'm now offended that anyone would even ask a question. And I think honestly, if you read the piece again, in no way is it saying that there shouldn't be athletics at BYU, or that that Clark Gilbert lied even, or that this is a bad thing. It's just trying to explain the reality and how we kind of balance these different things. And we're sort of to a point where my team matters so much that I actually don't even want to have the conversation with them. That's frustrating to me.
Well, and I often wonder how many latch on to a salacious headline and how many actually read the story. Because when I was doing radio with Gordon for years, oftentimes topically we discuss what he wrote. And so I go read it, then I look at some of the comments, and you could tell, oh, you didn't read this story, okay? You see Gordon Monson, you've decided that you think he's woke or whatever the hell it is, and you're at Coug Lover Cosmo online, and you're spending your evenings on Cougar Board, and you're doing the thing, and you see a headline, and you just decide to bleep post, as kids would say these days. You're puking your dumb thoughts on the internet, which is where cowards go to feel brave, and you're not reading it, and you're not really considering it. And I think anybody who believes it's impossible for athletics to be compromised at BYU is either basically a member of Cougar Board or not paying attention to the bigger picture. I don't think they'll ever completely do away with athletics. But if a few more stories of these are grabbing headlines, I could see them deciding to do something. I don't know what that looks like, but to believe this will be nothing to see here if this stuff becomes public, and it's very important to point out that it is when it becomes public, okay? But if this is grabbing headlines consistently moving forward, it's not unfair to say something could be on the table.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there, like I said, there are people that have, varying degrees of opinions about this, and not everyone who is a high-level person in the LDS Church is a sports fan.
Right.
Exactly. People have different priorities and interests. So, of course, anything can change. I would still bet very heavily. Back to our segment ago. Bet very heavily on Kalshi against the dissolution of the Athletics.
Can we get odds on Kalshi about that yet? Okay.
Don't think they're going to be very good.
Well, there's also a chasm between academia and athletics, right? It's not just the church. I think a lot of this is going on at the U behind the scenes right now with this private equity deal.
Absolutely true.
Because Taylor Randall's the president of the school.
Correct.
He's a steward of a lot of different things, not just the athletic
Hospital,
department.
Healthcare system.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Some people are saving lives up there, and maybe they deserve some money too, as opposed to going to get a nickel.
Well, and that is their argument, is that this frees up by going into this private equity deal. Now Otro is responsible for drumming up enough money to pay for athletes, so they don't have to go to, hey, Spence Checketts, do you want to go to the hospital or to Devin Dampier?
Right.
That's the they hope that's the benefit of this.
Are they spending any money on basketball?
It would seem some. I mean, they've added a couple of international prospects.
Yeah.
But somebody mentioned Joe Baird, former Tribune sports editor, was texting me about like Utah State, and they're 4 for 4.
Yeah.
The last 4 coaches, and they win a bunch. And I don't. Spectrum Magic, go Aggies. Like it's a good environment, and like it's awesome what they've done. But Craig Smith, I think, proves that it's also about like where you are compared to your competition, financially, and especially at that point it wasn't the NIL era, but talent wise, and now talent is basically 1-to-1 in terms of how you're spending. So,
Right.
I don't think that it's like, oh, we got to find Utah State's done something right, the U has done something wrong. It's just going to take more money.
Yeah,
obviously.
Is it Utah State, great, or is that Weber State?
That's Weber State.
What's the Utah? Is there a Utah State chant?
I don't know. Winning team, losing team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bench is going to be disappointed. All right. Before we set you loose, we had Andy on in studio last week. After 13 years on the beat, Andy is going to try to find a little more balance in his life. We talked about the before and after photo he posted, which is wild. Our guy's aged a bit on the beat. That's
like a president, Obama at the end.
It's wild, man. And look, I don't think most listeners understand that's a grind. Being on, and you get it, but those guys, man, and you have elected to make a little bit of a similar move. Would you like to share with us what you're going to do and why?
Yeah. I'm going to transition out of sports at the Tribune and take over editing. We're calling it like a culture team, but it's arts and culture and food, but also business, and I'll still edit Andy in kind of a data reporter role. I think there are some similar reasons, and frankly, my first year on the beat was Andy's first year as a credentialed media member as well, 2013. We've been doing this for a long time. I haven't had a true 9-to-5, in nearly 15 years.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some life work balance reasons there, and I also think I've got as Andy does, and we all do, varied interests, and I've done this for a really long time, and it's been really rewarding, and it's fun. And there's so much interesting stuff, like the shuttering of the Washington Post sports section is a travesty because of how people can use sports as a lens to see the world. And I hope we can, we're going to continue to do that at the Tribune as well. But I also think there are some other avenues to explore there, and just different ways to connect with people. And I'm just excited for a new challenge.
What was Monson's reaction?
He was very kind. He very quick, within like 2 minutes of the conversation, was, if you're happy, I'm happy.
Okay.
He's good with it. He was my first call.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll miss you in the sports space, but thrilled that you're still going to be around, and we're still going to bug you to come on the show. I hope you know that.
I'll be watching. I'll it all folds together, and that's what's so great about it.
Totally agree. All right, buddy. Good to see you.
You as well.
Aaron Falk, longtime editor of the sports section for the Salt Lake Tribune, now making a switch over to just a different faction of the paper, but he'll still be around. Appreciate his time. Speaking of Aaron Falk, let's get you in great shape. Game Day Men's Health. Okay, Game Day Men's Health, new client on the show. And I'm excited that they're a client because I work with them, and they're offering you the same deal they offer me. So couple of years ago, made a goal, decided I was going to get into the best shape I've ever been in as an adult, okay? Hit the gym, cleaned up some habits, started eating clean, and within a couple of months, I was frustrated with lack of progress. And I had a friend recommend Game Day Men's Health and said, have you ever supplemented testosterone? Which I had not. So I went through the process that now 2 years later has led me to be in literally the best shape I've ever been in as an adult. Here's what you do. You'll get a free consultation where they do a little bit of blood work, and then they go over your levels with you. And then they show you where you're good and then maybe where you're low. And then they utilize some of their products to help you with a plan that they put in place. And then you follow up. So I use their peptides and then I utilize testosterone therapy. And within a couple of months, I had made 10 times the progress I made in the 2 months prior to. But here's the kicker. If you mention ESPN 700, if you tell them that you heard me talking about it on the show, they're offering you 50% off your first year of membership, 50% off your first year of membership. And it is only February. So you get 50% off all year long. Same deal they give me. Let's get you back in shape prior to the weather getting warm so you're not the dad at the pool that keeps his T-shirt on. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Free consultation. And then mention you heard me talking about it on the show. You get 50% off. It's our good friends at Game Day Men's Health. We'll catch a break. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Zach Harper joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, the NBA is off for another few days. The Jazz will be in action coming up on Friday against Memphis, a homecoming of sorts for Jaren Jackson Jr., although he's not playing the rest of the season. Zach Harper, NBA Daily Assist out on a Tuesday. What was your All-Star weekend experience like? Were you there in person? Did you consume any of it?
Yeah, I was there for all 3 days. It was it's in LA, so I'm here. Different when it's in your city versus when you're on the road. I did not feel as compelled to go to things. I felt compelled to go home as much as possible, and cut nights short to make better decisions for myself.
Okay, that sounds very un-Zach Harper-like. Am I sensing a little growth, buddy? Like maybe a little self-improvement?
Well, no, you know what I think it is? I got a dog. I can't see my dog. Yeah, I think it's just caring for a human versus caring for myself. Or I'm not caring for another being versus caring for myself.
Is there a better excuse to get out of plans than my dog is at home? It's like the perfect out.
It's the best.
Yeah.
No one really respects it, but they also are like, well, yeah, you can't just leave a dog. They're not like a cat. And so, I don't think anyone's, cool with it, but at the same time, they can't really be mad.
Yeah, they're not cool with it, but if you really force the issue, then you're a jerk. So, there's enough of a smokescreen where it just gets you out of plans brilliantly. So I'm on board with that.
Yeah, it's a great out every single time.
Was there any portion of your All-Star experience that you actually enjoyed?
Yeah, I like pretty much everything. I enjoyed I was at the Rising Stars games Friday night. Really good action for pretty much the entirety of it. I didn't think Saturday night was that bad. I know everyone's like, oh, the dunk contest. No, we had two good dunkers, and Jackson Hayes and Jace Richardson. But we had two good dunkers who, he won Keshad Johnson won kind of by default, but he had great dunks. So if people just want to be mad at that, and then Sunday was great. I gotta be completely full disclosure. I had a lot of skepticism about Sunday's format, and at least this time it delivered. I don't know that it's fixed, but at least this time it delivered.
I think it did as well, and I entered it with zero expectations, and if you do that, you could be pleasantly surprised if things are better than you thought that they would be. But let me hone in on a couple. And I've always been a 3-point contest guy, so it's not a new thing. This was one of the best ones we'd ever had, in my opinion. Yeah. Mitchell and Kahn, they're on fire to just lead things off. And Donovan couldn't even make it to the next round because of the excellent shooting of Booker and, of course, Damian Lillard. And, we're Dame people around here. He played his college ball locally, as you know. And I thought it was just a really cool moment. I didn't know how he was going to look. He hasn't played all year, but it didn't affect him. His win was there, and I thought it was a cool thing to see Dame win it for the third time.
It is cool to just I don't want to completely compare it to this because they're not one of ones, but you remember that one game in the playoffs where Brandon Roy dialed it back and he dropped 48, 50 points or something like that. And everyone was like, oh, that's right. That's what that used to look like. Not that Dame's that removed from it, but it is an injury thing, and him going out there and just lighting it up. And then obviously Devin Booker had a great chance to beat him in the final round, but missed the final 3 shots there to at least tie it. But it still was oh, that's right. Dame will be back next season, and we don't know how good he's going to be, but we know he can shoot.
Yeah, and it was just I'm glad he had the opportunity. I know some people were kind of raising their eyebrows about why a guy who hasn't played gets a shot, but he's a former champ. And to see how it ended, I thought it was just really fun. But moving over to Sunday, as you alluded to, we'll see if it sticks, but at least in a vacuum, it appears to have been successful. How much of it, Zach, was the tone set by Victor Wembanyama and then Ant? Those two, it appeared like they were there to play, and it felt like everyone else had no choice but to follow suit.
I actually want to I think Ant fell in line. I don't think he went out there and set the tone. I think Cade Cunningham also set the tone.
Oh, okay.
He was flying all over the place defensively. I think they credit him with 3 block shots in the game. I'm pretty sure he had 10, 11 because he was everywhere. He was at the rim, defending the rim. So I thought he did a great job. And then after the first minute or so, Ant was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And then he brought it obviously and won the MVP. But to me, it was Wemby number 1 of setting that tone. And you could tell there was just a different energy with him on the court. It's good that they didn't start with both of the U.S. teams because I think you needed Wemby out there to begin things. And then with Cade flying around defensively, you didn't really have a choice. And then the only reason the last game was a blowout was because the older U.S. stars got tired. It was their third straight game in terms of those little 12-minute games. And Jaylen Brown missed 1,000 shots. And other than that, it was just a good energy. Now, we also had a great all-star game when we put the Elam ending in for the first time, remember? And it was like, oh, the all-star game is fixed. So I don't want to go that far. But I do think having someone like Wemby, having guys like Cade and Ant, I do think that this, kind of youth movement as we get to that next guard in the NBA does at least give me hope that this can be replicated pretty much every year.
And we also got about a 5 or 6 minute reminder that when he is right and when he is engaged, there are very few basketball players quite like Kawhi Leonard. I mean, that must have been cool to see up close.
Oh my God. It was at a certain point, I'm watching, I'm sitting next to Mo Dakhil, who's a great analyst.
Yep.
And so Mo and I are sitting there and we're like, man, Kawhi's cooking, I think he ran off 11 straight points. And we're like, wow, this is great. And then a minute later, I looked up and I think he had 31 points of their 48 in that winning game. I was like, what's going on? I knew he was hitting, but I didn't know it was, to that volume because it was so effortless. And it wasn't just because there was no defense there. They were defending him. He was just getting what he wanted. And it's a reminder of hey, I want to say since probably late November, early December, this has been Kawhi. He's been out there most games. He's just killing on the court. And I think if you knew that he was going to, definitely hit that 65 game threshold, then he'd be an MVP candidate right now. I really, but he's been that good, even though their team is not obviously good because of the bad start. If you're just going off since they turned it around, he's been, I don't know, the third or fourth best player in the league.
Yeah. And, in a way, he's always been that guy, but because he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, I think oftentimes we forget. I mean, look, over the course of LeBron's generational dominance, where he's clearly been the best player of this generation, there have always been players that have popped up in the debate where you're like, okay, who is right after him? I think if you look at it from 30,000 feet, that answer is probably Durant. But for about 4 or 5 years, man, that answer may have been Kawhi, and I think sometimes we forget that.
Absolutely, and also just the whole thing about him being the poster child for load management because we thought he didn't want to play. When you actually talk to people around him and talk to people who know this stuff, they're like, yeah, his knee is horrendous. He just it's not load management, it's injury management. And I think it's such a load management got the buzzwords out there and got the vitriol and all that stuff, but with him and Embiid, it's been injury management. I think they want to play, but their bodies just don't physically hold up. And so then you have to figure out, how do we get there? And unfortunately for Kawhi, that's kept him from really probably being, to your point, either the second or third guy in this generation when it just comes to complete players.
All right. Moving off the game here for a moment. And, this probably isn't anything new. It was a new realization for me. The NBA has now made it very obvious that a big piece of their business model is capturing very young consumers. Okay.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying that's a bad model. I'm saying it's a new approach where once upon a time during media day, you have only media members credentialed who asked intelligent questions that oftentimes bred intelligent responses from coaches and players. And now I turn on media day and there are influencers asking Devin Booker about his aura.
Right.
And, they're just looking for the snapshot moment where they can put it on their TikTok and on their Instagram or whatever. And, the Drewski guy, the YouTuber, was actually in one of the events. And at one point it looked like he intentionally threw a ball errantly so he could, of course, go back and post that. I don't want to sound like the old guy who's yelling, but it does appear that a big piece of what the NBA is doing now is they don't give a rip about the people that are complaining about load management or complaining about tanking, and they just want to capture the 17-year-old that's on his phone for a snapshot highlight because that same 17-year-old is not going to sit down and watch the Spurs play the Timberwolves. He just wants to see Wembanyama dunk. Yeah?
Yeah, they put out a press release, hey, 200 influencers with a combined over 1 billion followers will be at All-Star Weekend. It's
Yep.
like, who cares?
Yep.
Like, I get it. Like, it's a generation thing and all that stuff. I have a little bit of that stuff in my algorithm. So I see some of it. I understand a little bit of it. But, yeah, like, I mean, man, anytime – and it's not just the influencers. I want to – like, there are a lot of young media people trying to find their way in this business. And look, this business is tough and it sucks, right? Like it can be really, really hard to get any kind of foothold. But it's a lot of like kissing up to the players and like instead of like doing the job. And I always think of it as like, ooh, like the question media. Question media are the people who will post their questions, not the answers so much, but like their questions. And like that is just people who aren't really looking to cover the game. They're just looking to be a part of something, right? Mm-hmm. Which, fine. There's a whole economy for that, and obviously the NBA is embracing that. But, yeah, like it also feels like the NBA doesn't know what they're doing in getting the influencers. They're just bringing them in and hoping it works out. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of marketing plan. I still think the NBA has a massive marketing issue, and I don't know that just grabbing influencers and putting them at your event is going to fix it. But I guess if the numbers are there, then maybe I'm wrong.
So I want to, since we were talking about Kawhi, Adam Silver, Chris Mannix did ask Adam Silver about the latest on the Clippers investigation. And, you know, we've discussed this on the show. It feels like, you know, very political in a way to kind of flood the zone with other distractions and ignore this, which seems to be pretty obviously against the rules from everything that I've read and everything that's been uncovered. Do you have any understanding of where we're at with this and whether or not Steve Ballmer and the Clippers are, you know, at a situation where they might actually have some things come down on them?
I mean, that was a big topic at All-Star Weekend of just the people I talked to and the people I checked in with of like, what is going to happen? There's some people that believe Adam Silver's got them and it's going to be, you know, he's going to drop the hammer and all this stuff. And there are other people who think it's going to be more of a slap on the wrist. I think I'm somewhere in the middle there. I mean, if you go off what Adam Silver said, investigation's still ongoing. The NBA is not doing that. It's the law firm. Mike Vorkanoff did a great job writing about that on The Athletic of who this law firm is that they use for these investigations. And so I guess when that investigation is done, then all of it will be presented to the NBA. I find it a little hard to believe that that's the process, but you kind of got to go, I guess, off what they're saying. I think if it's going to be a strong to severe punishment, I don't think we're doing it anytime soon, right? It almost like feels like it would be a 5:00 news dump on a Friday in the sense that like once the Clippers are at it, like if the Clippers don't make the playoffs, if they're like get knocked out in the play-in tournament, it wouldn't shock me if like in the next week or two, as like something big's about to happen, that news just kind of sneaks out of what that punishment is. If it's not going to be that severe, then maybe we get that, you know, in the next month or so. But I would be pretty surprised if we get that before the end of the regular season.
Now, one of the discussions that we certainly have had, that distraction or not, has affected people around here, is that the Jazz received a $500,000 fine from the NBA for tanking. Now, look, a lot of people around here, and you lived here for a while, so you know the deal. It's, they hate us because we're Utah. They hate us because it's a small market. We have an inferiority complex that at this point I'm just bored with. It's so annoying. So for me, the Jazz deserved to be punished. They deserve to be fined. Exactly. And have been doing this, quite frankly, for 4 years.
Yeah.
But I think the question is, why not fine all of the teams that are clearly doing the same thing? To that, you say what, Zach?
Yeah, I'm in. Fine them. Like they fine Cleveland not for tanking, but for not reporting things properly, which is something Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs have seem pretty comfortable with. Indiana got fined for keeping Pascal Siakam out of the game where they thought he could have played, but it's, you know, a one-game thing versus here's two back-to-back games with the Jazz where they kept their two best players out in the fourth quarter without any – like if there had been a prior game like, hey, by the way, little calf tightness, little hip flex or something, then you can do that. It's no problem. And I get the argument of like, hey, you can't tell a team how to use their players. They're playing them. It's like, no, you can't. But also like, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the Jazz absolutely deserve that. If you want to start looking into the Kings – because DeMar DeRozan missed some fourth quarters. That's probably because they're getting blown out. But also, like, the Kings are pretty bad and the Jazz are pretty bad, and any of these teams, like, I think if we get to a point where Trae Young and Anthony Davis are not going to play the season for the Wizards, I would expect the Wizards to get a big fine. But it's something where I think it has to be, at least right now, based on how the league is handling this, it feels like it has to be a more gradual punishment for things and not just so knee-jerk. The Jazz one was knee-jerk because it was so blatant and in our face. But I would expect other teams to get hit hard before they figure out how to fix tanking.
So let's move into the space of actually two-part question. How much of an issue do you think this is? I mean, Steph was asked about it over All-Star Weekend. I thought he gave a really good response. Now, I believe it to be an issue, probably in no small part because I'm here in Salt Lake and I'm so tired of our basketball team being so unserious about this stuff.
It's cool to talk about wins.
Oh, my gosh, man. I don't even remember what that's like at this point. So I believe it's an issue. I count, and Mannix wrote about this, Haberstroh wrote about this, 10 teams potentially the rest of the year are going to do whatever they are, come up with to try to not win basketball games. So how big of an issue do you think this is? And of all of the proposed solutions, is there one you like the most?
I mean, it's a massive issue. The fact that we were talking about it a week before All-Star is a big problem. It can't be this early. We know it's going to happen every year. It can't be this early in the season. That's something that should happen like towards the end of February, early March, where we're like, wow, there's a lot of teams tanking. The only one who isn't blatantly tanking right now out of those 10 teams not in the play-in tournament is Milwaukee, because they kind of have to be like, oh, what if Giannis wants to stay? We got to be a little bit more competitive until we decide not to be.
Yeah.
So, but if that gets to a point where, all right, it doesn't benefit us for him to play the rest of the season, they will join the tank. Like, they absolutely will. The best proposal I saw was actually one that was presented to me on yesterday, on Monday. Mark Stein had a reader email him a big proposal about, like, hey, if you only win or you need to win 25 games to qualify for full lottery odds, right? And if you fail to make to 25 wins, then, you go to the back of the lottery line. And Mark Stein changed that to 27 wins because he's like, all right, that's a 30-year games. You should be able to win a 30-year games. There are some issues with it, but to me, that's my favorite thing that I've seen so far, because it is like it is forcing, like, hey, you gotta get to that 27 win threshold if you want your full odds. And we have, I think, 6 teams right now who are on pace to not make 27 wins. Like, that seems like a pretty good standard to set in order to do that. Now, yeah, there are going to be issues with it, but I'm fully on board with that idea. I
actually like that one. Of all of them, I think that makes sense. Hey, before I set you loose, it was only 49 minutes, but it was 49 pretty entertaining, productive minutes over the course of 3 games from Jaren Jackson Jr. So, ultimately, we know the deal. They're going to continue to tank and deny that they're doing it, but they're going to do it, and maybe they'll get fined again. But I do think they hold on to the draft asset. Who knows who they pick? But I do think next year they're actually going to be serious about this stuff. So Now that you've seen a little bit of what it looks like with Jaren Jackson Jr., if they're able to add a sizable piece in the draft, what do you think next year looks like for the Jazz?
I still, you got to factor in that the West is going to be still stacked, right? So I don't want to just say, like, yeah, this is a top 16. Like, no, they're hopefully a play-in tournament team, and then they can do enough to maybe get into the 7 or 8 seed. So I think that should be the goal, and that's a very reasonable goal. If that's something that they can do, that's a massive step forward from the slop you've watched the last 3.5 seasons, 4.5 seasons, whatever it's been at this point. But yeah, like, I think watching those those 3 big men out there and seeing and imagining, like, ooh, what if that was Walker Kessler instead, even though Nurk's been playing well? I like the idea, at least. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, glad you had a good time at All-Star. Appreciate the time today. Have a good week, and we'll chat soon, okay? Appreciate it. Zach Harper from The Athletic writes their weekly power rankings, does a lot of stuff with the draft as well. NBA TV, does Mad Dog Radio. Very busy guy. Get him on social media. At Talk Hoops is where you find him. All right, new burger place. Did not know that they were going to sign on the dotted line as a client, but I'm pumped because I actually went there randomly about a month ago. Trolley Square is the spot. It's called Burger Fusion. Okay, it's located just west of the Whole Foods. If you have not been,
you should go tonight. You can also DoorDash their product. I recommend going to get it yourself because by the time the DoorDash gets to you, it might be a little bit cold. Some of the best burgers I've had anywhere, not just in Utah. It's a very creative twist on burgers, unique ingredients. They work really well together, complement each other. They've got a velvet smoke show, which is creamy peanut butter, berry jam, caramelized onions, hot honey pickles, and pepper jelly aioli. Really, really good. Tried their Merlot Merlot Belveneto cheese, bacon, an apple slice, caramelized onions, apple basil slaw, and apple aioli. It's Wagyu beef patties, fresh in-house. Great burgers. They've got crispy fried Havarti pickles, fries, mozzarella squares, and much more. Again, you can dine in, you can pick up, order delivery. It is Burger Fusion in Salt Lake City, 490 and 700 East of Trolley Square. So Trolley Square, right around the corner from the Whole Foods, or check them out online at burgerfusion.com. RSL is getting set to kick things off coming up in just a matter of days at this point. We'll bring in Pablo Mastroeni coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. NBA All-Star Weekend is behind us, but a few more days off for pro basketball. Jazz back in action on Friday against Memphis. Bobby Marks will join us to break that down in the 5 o'clock hour, our buddy from ESPN, NBA front office insider. However, in 4 days, soccer is back. That's right, 4 days away. RSL on the road taking on Vancouver. A couple old buddies will be in action in that game. And our next guest is the head coach of RSL. And I know you have missed this so badly, Pablo. Pablo Mastroeni, welcome back, buddy. How you been?
Thanks, bud. Glad to be back with you, Spence.
Well, I appreciate your time. 4 days away. My first question is, are you ready to roll? This season is the very definition of a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, again, just looking at the progress we had throughout preseason and really the last game we played against LA Galaxy in California, just in all phases of the game, the guys were bright. The guys competed the right way, played some really, really good stuff, scored 3 goals, and probably left 2 or 3 on the table. And so all the things that kind of we talked about last year is really manifesting itself with some of the new players that we picked up, and really just the mindset. You know, I think when you bring good players into the squad, it boosts the confidence of everyone else. And so I feel really good about this year. I feel really good about the work that we all did in preseason, and now it's really about getting in the arena and doing the work there.
One of the big talking points, Pablo, has been this new formation shift you guys are going to make to a 3-5-2. So let's kind of dig into this. And obviously the goal, as you and I discussed last year and throughout the course of the offseason, is hopefully this will lead to more attacking opportunities where that soccer ball ends up in the back of the net of the other teams, which is important to winning games. So talk about this acclimation period. How's it going?
Yeah, no, it's been good. You know, I think the biggest changes have been, well, actually on both sides of the ball. And one of the things that we looked at and really identified is how poor we did in attacking transition. So in other words, we win the ball defensively. What kind of goal threat are we when we win the ball? And last year was very much more, we win the ball, let's keep possession. This year, in the 4 games that we've played, our best chances have come from our defending higher up the field, winning the ball, and going directly to goal. And I think a lot of that has to do with the player profiles. So you have Gozo, you have Victor Olatunji, and you also have Morgan Gilvogi. And these guys are pace, power, and quality. And I think that is a new dynamic to our team that this shape allows us to play in and be really aggressive in the attack in the defensive part that turns into attack. The other part is we want to get 5 guys on the highest line. So 2 wing backs, right, a 10 and a 9.5 and a 9, right? So 5 players on the highest line with 4 guys finishing in the box. And so that's been something that we've been hitting in the preseason. And again, the more numbers you have in the box with box entries, the higher likelihood you are going to score. And so, you know, we've seen it progress in preseason, and then really kind of, you know, the climax of that being displayed against LA Galaxy, where, like I said, we probably left 2 or 3 on the table. So the fact that we're scoring goals is really exciting. The fact that we're creating even more chances to even finish games off is really exciting. So you put both of those together, and the tactical tweak that we made has really allowed our left wing back to be more aggressive in the attack, and then Gozo on the right side has been phenomenal. And now you have 3 really attacking players in Diego Luna, Victor Olatunji, and Morgan Gilavogi. And it looks really good, Spence. And obviously there's going to be things we need to work along the way. But I think looking at the macro and what we identified that we needed to improve, you know, I've seen it in real time. And so now it's really about doing it when there's bullets flying. And that'll be the next phase of our growth.
Now, in large part, I don't want to speak for you, but of course, you must have decided to go about your business this way, believing Diego was ready for a centralized role that maybe he wasn't ready for even a couple of years ago. Is that fair to say? And how is that looking right now?
Yeah, you know, I think the interesting thing is, you know, I think defensively he's going to have a similar responsibility. And we looked at this early days with him defending centrally. And what that ended up doing was pushing our 9.5 and our 9 deeper into wide channels. And so we found a really good balance where Diego has the freedom to roam, right? In the LA game, he popped up everywhere. He popped up on the right. He popped up on the left. He popped up down the middle. But he defended more from the left side channel. And so I think we'll always try to customize the setup to our most important players and the players that are going to help us score goals, right? And so I think Diego in his evolution, understanding when to pop up centrally or when the spaces in the half spaces, in the wide half spaces. And so I think giving him that flexibility and letting him interpret the space was on full display this last weekend. And for me, he actually played probably his best game in a Salt Lake uniform in this last preseason game. The way he was attacking the goal, the way he was getting in the box, scored a goal and helped set up a couple others. And so I think this new shift will definitely get him on the ball more, and more importantly, get him on the ball more in dangerous areas, right? Not dropping so deep. And so he's taken on to it. And like I said, this is a big year for Diego and a big year for our group as well.
So the left wing back position has come up a couple of times as far as a spot that will be very important when it comes to this new formation. I need to work on my pronunciation, getting to know the new names, but I believe it's Juan Manuel Sanabria, or I think that's how you say it. Yeah. So is it? Oh, nice. Okay, good. 1 for 1. Is it thought to be like? And look, I know that there are some visa issues going on. I'm not exactly sure with which players and when we're going to see who, but once everything is settled, is this kind of the player that you envision playing that left wing back spot?
Yeah, I think the pedigree that Juan has is tremendous. Had some exposure in Europe recently, in Mexico, and it's also a big preseason / early season for him as well. He's on the the preliminary list for the Uruguay national team, and one of the things that really stood out with his play was his ability to get up and down, and so he's got an engine similar to Gozo, where his high-speed running is through the roof. He's got a great change of pace. He's got really good delivery, and he also notched a goal at the weekend against the Galaxy as well. So his offensive production and his ability to recover defensively is top level. And so when you have these kind of players, like I said earlier, it just really brings a lot of confidence into the group. His decisions are always really good decisions, experienced decisions. But he is a very, very dynamic player on both sides of the ball.
Okay, so let's just kind of go over this. Gilavogi, Sanabria, Solens, as well as Arias, Spirians, and Engel. Those are the 6 new players, Pablo. How many of the 6 new players do you anticipate being available for you as soon as this weekend? And in attendant to the question is, what's the process that will land all 6 of them here as soon as possible?
Yeah, so that's the tricky part, Spence. I'm getting confirmation. Well, two of those guys are definitely in. Gilavogi might meet us there depending on when his visa is approved. So we'll have 2 of those guys in. One might show up, but it just depends on if he shows up on Saturday or shows up on Friday, whether or not he'll be in the game roster. And then there's 2 others that are kind of questionable, right? And again, these are all literally we'll find out Thursday or Friday. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday. So Thursday or Friday as to their availability for the game. And then one of our new players is out with an injury. He's recovering. He'll be another probably 5 weeks until he'll be up to full steam. So I'd anticipate that by the 3rd game of the season, we should have 5 of the 6 players available and in somewhat of physical form to be able to contribute meaningfully.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, obviously we'd like to have them on the ground sooner, and I know you would too, more than anyone, but one step at a time here. While we're talking health and injuries, Emeka Anelli, Pablo Ruiz, you move on from Brian Ojeda, you do bring Stein Spearings in. It's a spot where you have a lot of depth. How healthy right now, Emeka and Pablo? Yeah,
well, funny you say Pablo's just recovering from a calf strain. He was out for about a week during the California trip, so he's just now started training full yesterday. So he's battled some injury stuff through the preseason as well, and has only played 45 minutes in preseason games. So from a starting perspective, I don't think he's there yet. And then Emeka, unfortunately has been injured throughout all of preseason. And, my anticipation that he's probably still 6 to 8 weeks out, given what the feedback that I'm getting from the medical department. So, it's crazy how this works out. You feel like you have a lot of depth, but then life happens. And so we do what we do. And there's a young player in Luka Moisa who's an academy player representing the U.S. under-17s at the last World Cup and has had a standout preseason. And so, he's been performing really, really well. And the expectation is that he gets his first nod at the weekend.
He's going to start.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, that's very cool in one sense. And then, at some point, we got to get healthy too, right? Fair to say?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Obviously, I mean, I think, and those are the expectations. But again, I think one of the strengths of how we coach as a staff is that we got to get everyone prepared, because you never know when moments like these are going to come. And the last thing you want is to make excuses as to why things didn't go the way you wanted them to. And so, obviously, Luka, it's going to be a huge stage for him. But again, I wouldn't put him out there if I didn't think he can contribute. And what he's been able to do in these preseason games is show that he belongs. And he might be a little bit undersized and lack a little bit of experience, but the fight that he has, his vision and his technique is really good. So, and the other part too is making sure you surround him with experienced guys. Our back line is really experienced. Noel Kaliskit has quite a few games under his belt now, and so I think with the players around him, he'll be able to find his way in what will be probably one of the proudest moments of his life.
Will he be starting next to Stein? Is Stein going to be the other central mid?
No, unfortunately, Stein hasn't been with us in preseason. So he's going to probably need a proper preseason. So he's probably a good 4 to 6 weeks away. To really being able to contribute in a way that that he can. And he's been out for quite some time, and obviously visa issues. He hasn't been with the team. He was with the group for about a week in Portugal, and then since then he's been away. So with him and Emeka out, obviously, and then Pablo coming out from injury, we're a little bit thin there. But like I said, the guys that have been in there have been working their tails off, and treat them like those. We as a staff treat the guys that are playing like as if they're a first-team player, and they deserve to be there and they belong there. And we're gonna get the best out of them, Spence.
And I would imagine, since you're moving to 3 in the back, the central holding mid spot even becomes more important as it pertains to being able to track back and play D. I mean, this is my pea brain soccer brain speaking, but is that fair to say?
Yeah. No, they're gonna, again, when you're especially the way we want to play and being aggressive with our wing backs, there's gonna be times they're gonna have to cover wide channels. There's gonna be times they're gonna have to fill in, on the back line, as you rightly pointed out. But they're also the facilitators of the balls to get the balls into Morgan, Diego, and Victor, and the wing backs. And so their roles are really, really important for this type of setup, and they're kind of like the metronome of our possession, making sure the thing keeps on ticking. But they also have to be aware of transitions, both offensively and defensively, to make sure we're a solid unit.
Engel, Glad, Yedlin. I mean, I'm just taking my best guess. I have no idea. I mean, is that the three-man back line you think we'll see?
Yep.
Okay.
That's pretty accurate, unless something unforeseen happens. And,
sure.
And again, I think with those three, and then Hoffa and goal, I think it's a pretty good. It's a pretty experienced group, right? And so definitely lean in on their experience in these early days. But like I said, their performances in preseason have steadily continued to improve, and the understanding of their the strengths of each player and the weaknesses of each player, and how you play the ball to them, when do you play the ball to them, and all these things have really grown over the last 5 weeks. And so I feel really good about the solidity of our back line and what they're capable of doing on both sides of the ball.
For the past couple of years, and maybe it's this young man you're introducing to us today, you've been able to identify a young player or two that, given time, really start to pop and really start to grow. Last year for me, without having any knowledge, it was clearly Gozo. And I hear awesome things about his preseason. Pablo, what can you share with us?
Yeah, to be fair, I'm just so impressed and so proud of the mindset that Gozo has. I think he's young kids that have achieved what he has in a short span of time usually get a little ahead of themselves. And the one thing about Gozo is he stays humble and he stays grounded. Obviously, he's got a great family network. He's got as coaches, we take care of him. We look after him as far as the video sessions and making sure that he's in a good way. And that's all what we can control is the environment that we create. But as far as what he's done in this preseason, he's created so many goal scoring opportunities, and he's also notched a goal in the last 2 games, and probably could have had 1 or 2 more. And he also earned the penalty that Luna buried at the weekend. And so he's just been so influential on both sides of the ball, and in this new position that he's playing. It couldn't be better, because again, when you have a guy that's willing to track back, but then the speed to break out on transition, it's scary, and so opposing teams are going to have to really think about how much they want to send their outside backs forward, knowing that they have a gazelle to chase on going the other way. And so I think he's going to be a top player. And this year it's making sure we kind of don't get carried away, continue to put him in positions to be successful. But I have to say there's been very few young players that have the both physical capabilities, and now he's really adding a lot of technical aspects to his game, shooting with his left foot. He scored a wonderful goal a couple of weeks ago, cutting inside and banging it with his left, and just all these little things, these little growth moments that are just so special to see, given where he was only a year ago.
So I know he's not going to be here for a moment, but the highest profile acquisition made, and again, visa issues when it comes to the ecosystem of world soccer, you're not the only ones, right? So it's something everybody deals with. But let's get to know Morgan Guilavogi a little bit more, because he's now the highest paid player, designated player, and also plays the position of need striker. So we may not see him for a little bit, but when we see him, what should we know about him?
Yeah, I think one is just really the character of the person. Again, this is a young man who's played at the highest level of the game. He's played Division I in France. He's played Division I in Germany, and he comes to us in Salt Lake with this really a hunger to really put his stamp on the game, and he does so in a multitude of ways. One, he's his vision, his ability to combine with up front with a guy like Luna and Gozo and Victor is top. So combination play is exceptional. He can score goals. He's got a really good final product with both his right and his left. He's fast and dynamic, and he works extremely hard defensively to close down and press. And so when you have a DP that really encompasses all the values of what we're looking for at the club, it's rare. And the other part is, the role he'll play is more like 9.5, which is, Victor will occupy the highest line where he can kind of play between the lines alongside the kind of the same dimensions as Luna, but also getting in the box as that second striker, right? And so when all 3 of them are playing together, as they did in LA, we had 3 of those guys in the box, and it was a sight to see. And I think the other part too is, and we talked about this in the recruitment phase, was it's not only what he can bring to our team, but how he can make the players that we have better around him. And the connection that is really, really evident, him playing on the right side as kind of like a withdrawn striker with Gozo as that wing back, it has been so dynamic. And the combination play between those two, and then Luna, connecting with Morgan as well, has been a sight to see. So I think he just makes our team a bit more sophisticated, a bit more, we found a way to be a bit more diverse in the way we attack, where last year was more everyone's coming to the ball. He has the ability to do both. He'll stretch, he'll come to the ball. Luna comes to the ball, but he's been stretching. And so now it's just, I feel like teams are going to have to really, pick which ones they want to go after, and whoever they don't, I feel like will be able to score goals or help the team set up goals. So I think that's what Morgan brings. I think he's greater than just himself in what he brings to our group, but I anticipate that he's going to have a fantastic year putting goals in the back of the net and also assists.
There may be nothing here, but I feel like whether it's a social post or hearing conversations, I've heard the name, I think it's Aiden. He's Arcani, a number of different times. And I just wanted to ask you about him because it feels like one of those names that's been thrown out there is maybe somebody that could have a little bit of growth this year. Tell us what we should know.
Yeah, no, another young player who's had really a breakout preseason, and Aiden is one of the most I would call him balanced, and I don't want to draw this parallel because it's really big, but maybe it can help articulate what I mean by balance. Is when Messi's going at players and there's three guys and he's slaloming from side to side and he never loses his balance. Aiden's kind of has the same type of profile where he's not scared to take players on. He does a great job. There's two or three players coming at him. His vision to work without the ball and find pockets to receive it is really good. And the other part of Aiden's game that's exceptional is his ability to finish. He's got a wonderful left foot, but also can cut back to his right and has a very good right foot. And so he just ticks all the boxes as a young player he's got the it factor and just needs an opportunity. And this preseason, he's played some really, really good minutes for the group. And again, a player that we all feel comfortable with getting minutes even at the weekend. Another great young prospect who will hopefully get a chance this weekend to shine.
All right. People that have listened to our interviews over the years will understand I'm asking this not just for the truncated coach's answer, because I have asked you maybe every preseason that I've interviewed you whether or not you are satisfied with the talent you have at your disposal. And you're very honest when you feel like you need some assistance, you need some support, and you'd like a center back or you'd like a whatever it is. So as we approach this season, there's been money spent. Ownership has stepped up. There are 6 new players, and my understanding is they've intentionally elected to hold a DP spot for a summer signing because you have so many games after the World Cup break. What is the head coach's opinion on the talent on the roster? Do you feel like you got the support that you need?
I'll just say this, Spence. I think this is by far the most talented team that I've coached since coming to the club.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I think when you build a team, you really think about the spine and you think about the guys down the middle, right? And I think that is we got a lot of quality. We got a good amount of experience down the middle. The back line, experience, quality, and then you have Diego Luna, who's the creator. You have Gozo, who's the guy that's flying. You have Sanabria flying down the other flank. And so I just feel like to start a campaign, it's the most quality that we've had on a roster. And I think as we move forward, we'll see where we can make some gains. But I feel really confident about this group in the way they've attacked preseason and the qualities that they've shown. So I am so optimistic and so excited about the start of this year.
All right. Well, the way you answered it leads me to believe there might be another hole or two we're looking at, Pablo. If we do make another addition or two, where would you like to see that?
Well, I think it'd be more in like who's the I guess Anderson Julio that comes into the game and really makes a name for themselves.
Yeah.
It'd be more of that type of role. But I think from just out of the gates, starting 11, I feel really, really good. And I think that may be the next piece is that next player that comes into the game and really flips it on its head and makes teams go, geez, they got these three and then this guy comes in. Oh man, we're in trouble. So, but like I said, I'm really pleased with the guys that have come in. And again, Spence, I think the other part too is like not only the quality, and I know the quality makes a difference, but if the quality isn't a cultural fit, then it doesn't matter how much quality you have. We can talk about technique and all these things all day long, but if you're not buying in to working hard for the team, then it doesn't work. And I'd say every single one of these players that you've mentioned come in with such a humble, hungry attitude, and it just fits in with the group. And that's why I think the transition has been seamless, because we also picked the right person, not just the right player.
Well said. All right, last thing, and I'll set you loose. Vancouver's really good. Last year they were just a couple of games away from winning, I think, CONCACAF and MLS Cup. I know you smash the MLS power rankings every week when they're released, so I know you already know that they're number 3 in the preseason power rankings, which I'm learning in real time. Look, you tell me. This seems to be a really quality side and a very tough opponent for your opening match. What should we know about Vancouver?
Yeah, I think they had a really good season last year, and really it was the addition of Mueller, who came over from Bayern Munich, and really helped that group create kind of a new identity, a new belief system. And so I think everything, that they do goes around him and Brian White up front. And obviously the pieces that they have around him, Sebastian Berhalter has been featuring with the U.S. national team, another very good midway midfielder. And they're pretty solid in the back, and they have a solid goalkeeper. And so I think they've built a pretty good team with some good quality. But again, I think what the beauty of MLS is that everyone can predict certain things, and then, the rubber meets the road on game day one. And my expectation is that we're going to put forth a performance that will make everyone around here proud, man. I'm really excited. The guys are, fired up, and we're going for the 3 points, man. We're going to hopefully put our best foot forward. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some difficult moments, but we'll learn a lot about ourselves after this first game, and hopefully we can do that with a good result.
Well, just always a little bit more fun when soccer season's here, buddy. So I appreciate your time today. Best of luck. Go hit the road and get 3. And, of course, we're pulling for you here, all right?
Awesome, Spence. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
All right, Pablo Mastroeni, RSL back in action 4 days away, coming up on Saturday at BC Place against Vancouver. Vancouver's a really good team. RSL with a lot of new players. I should probably bring information to the airwaves that many of the players that were brought in are still dealing with some visa issues. Pablo alluded to that. So a couple of guys available coming up on Saturday, but I believe the majority of the biggest signings, we will not see those players for a couple of weeks. Home opener is coming up on February the 28th against Seattle. RSL.com is where you go for single game and season tickets. And, of course, we will be tracking a historic day coming up in April as Lionel Messi will play soccer in Sandy, Utah. Lionel Messi will play soccer in Sandy, Utah. That's a wild sentence to say. Before we catch a break, I want to tell you about a new client, Wasatch Medical Spa. My friend Shelly, been able to get to know her. She's awesome. Clinically proven technology that's been trusted in women's intimate wellness for over 10 years and now has been adapted for men. Now, Shelly and Wasatch Medical Spa are the only spa in Utah to offer what's called Apex RF. It's a non-surgical, drug-free treatment, no pills, no injections, no downtime either. Everyone they've treated reports noticeable improvement regardless of age. And everyone is recommending Apex RF to others looking to improve performance and confidence. So on a scale from just wanting to kind of improve your love life to ED all the way to the other side, this new technology can help you on a number of different levels called Apex RF. It's discreet, comfortable, and private. You're back to your day immediately. Your first visit is an easy 30-minute free consultation with no obligation. But as a result of them being a client on the show, we love our clients. They're giving you 50% off your first treatment. That's a savings of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So book online at wasatchmedicalspa.com. Experience the next level of men's performance. It's wasatchmedicalspa.com. Tell them you heard me talking about it. Free consultation, 50% off your first treatment with our friends at Wasatch Medical Spa. All right, final hour of the show is next on ESPN 700. All right, Drive at 5 time, Tuesday afternoon style. 10 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock. Happy Tuesday to you. I am impressed. I thought I would say Monday like 10 times today. Playing a little hurt, got a little sinus thing going on, little congestion, little nasal headache. So doing the best to get through the show. Totally thought it was Monday for way too long this morning, but hopefully you had a great long weekend and maybe some time off like we did yesterday for President's Week, or President's Day, I should say. Play a little golf randomly enough over the weekend. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case for quite some time. It is cold today. Going to be cold all week, and looks like the mountains, our ski resorts, are getting smoked with snow. So congratulations to them. They've been waiting for this all year long. So happy Tuesday. Good weekend behind us. A lot of sports action, NBA All-Star Weekend, some college hoops. Colin Morikawa got his 7th PGA Tour win and his first win in about 2.5 years. We really haven't talked any golf today because we've been so basketball and kind of Olympic-centric. Good night tonight in the world of college basketball. If you're dialed in, Michigan is your new number 1 team in the country. They're really good. Purdue is the top 10 team. Michigan is throttling them. At Purdue, 42-22. We've got Florida, South Carolina tonight. Should be a good one, although Caleb Wilson is out for the year, I think. NC State, Carolina. We got St. Louis, Rhode Island. No local action tonight. BYU will be back in action coming up on Wednesday at Arizona. All right, so, of course, we've discussed the dynamic on the show today of the unfortunate news coming out of Provo of Richie Saunders tearing his ACL. BYU needed overtime against Colorado to get that win at home. And Jimmer Fredette was honored. They retired Jimmer's number, only the 5th BYU basketball player of all time. And the first BYU basketball player in 23 years. They haven't had a number retirement since Danny Ainge. Now, Rob Wright, A.J. DeBonsa, Richie Saunders combined as a big three, average about 62 points a game. That leads college basketball. But now that Richie is out, ultimately the way I've talked about it is AJ's their most talented player. He's maybe the most talented player in the country. Rob really makes them go, but Richie was kind of like their emotional leader as the upperclassman, the senior who came back to try to play his way into the first round of the NBA draft. News like this sucks because it doesn't just compromise the rest of BYU season. What does Richie Saunders' pro career look like now? I mean, he's older, of course, as a senior. He'll be on the shelf for like another year. I thought he was probably a second-round pick. Now he might have to go make a living overseas. And BYU at this point trending in the wrong direction. I thought BYU would be like a top 3 team in the Big 12 and maybe a team that can make a run to like an Elite 8 or a Final 4. And now this is going to be tough to see them. I don't know. They might even get a 7 or an 8 seed. Utah State might get a better seed than BYU, and quite frankly, Utah State might deserve it. They've won 7 straight basketball games. They smoked Memphis over the weekend. Penny Hardaway in town was mad that Utah State was running up the score. I'll say the same thing to Penny that I say every time anybody's mad about this. You have the ability to stop it yourself. Go stop it. If you don't want the other team to score, go play, defense. 99-75, Utah State smoked them. Utah State at this point is trending towards maybe a 7 or a 6 seed. If they get a 5 seed, it'll be the highest seed the Utah State's ever received in a tournament. The Mountain West Conference, historically speaking, have not had a lot of success in the NCAA tournament, but this is a good Utah State team, man. Jared Calhoun's done a hell of a job. But without Richie Saunders for BYU, I don't know what to expect at this point. I mean, my gut tells me the rest of the way, they're probably going to get trounced at Arizona now. Arizona's awesome. If you missed Iowa State-Houston last night, Big Monday, that was a big boy basketball game. I think Iowa State will come into Provo and thump BYU. They've got UCF at home. They probably win that game, but UCF's a pretty good basketball team. You're going to look at West Virginia, at Cincinnati. They at least can split those games. But then they finish against Tech. BYU might finish with about a 500 conference record, if not even a little bit below. Maybe a 7 seed, and maybe they win 1 tournament game, which is just a wild miss for people like me that thought that they would be awesome. And you have to wonder, the Darren Peterson story in Kansas continues to permeate through college basketball because the kid And his handlers clearly do not want him to be compromised at all prior to the NBA draft process, and you understand why. AJ has been willing to play. He's been durable. But if they're trending in the wrong direction, is there any conversation about putting AJ on ice and saving him for his pro career? I don't know. For the Utah youth side of things, they continue to invent ways to just lose basketball games. So they were on the road at Cincinnati over the weekend, in case you missed it. After losing to Houston at home last week, Cincinnati, a fine team on the scope of the Big 12. They're right about 500, 6-7 in conference play, 14-12 overall. They're not a bad basketball team. This would have been probably Utah's best win all year long, especially it's given that it was on the road. I mean, this Cincinnati team did beat Iowa State, who is really impressive. And they've had some decent wins over some teams that are okay, but ultimately, on the road, this would have been a good win for Utah. Utah goes up 5 with like 75 seconds left to play, and I'm watching the game. I'm like, all right, they're going to do it, because you got to start to learn how to win at some point, make it a habit. And then just a spectacular combination of errors down the stretch allows Cincinnati to go on a 9-0 run in like 75 seconds. And Utah falls to 1-11 in the Big 12, 9-16 overall. They've lost 9 straight basketball games, and they've lost 15 straight Big 12 games on the road. I don't know what they're spending on this roster. For my money, Kiana Dawes is the one you want back, and then I think you go about your business of trying to rebuild it from the ground up again. They just don't have the talent in every gym. They are just simply outmanned. So some tough stuff for Alex. All right. Bobby Marks became a name that a lot of people around here learned last week. All right, if you have not been to Burger Fusion, I am telling you, you got to run. All right, go tonight. I mean, if you like burgers, if you're not into burgers, that's one thing. It's at Trolley Square. It's right around the corner from Whole Foods. Like I said, it basically is as good of a burger as I've had here and anywhere else. I mean, we have all these burger spots that pop up for a minute and then they kind of lose their mojo. This place is awesome. Burger Fusion, 602 East, 500 South, Trolley Square. Okay, they've got fresh mozzarella They've got fresh mozzarella squares or mozzarella balls. How about that? Havarti pickle spear. Those are fried as well. Onion rings, roasted garlic, rosemary fries, and then a bunch of different burgers. I had their cheese royale last time. There was cheddar cheese, caramelized onions, tomato, and their coleslaw. They got a blue ribbon, which is a blue cheeseburger. The Manhattan melt is a pastrami, provolone cheese, Russian dressing, and coleslaw burger. It is awesome. I'm telling you, go tonight. You can also order to pick up, or you can order one of the like DoorDash apps. They can do that too. They definitely cater, and it's brand new. I want to support them because I like good burgers, and I want them to stick around. So it's our good friends at Burger Fusion down at Trolley Square. Try that for dinner tonight. All right, nothing really local going on tonight at all. Utah basketball back in action tomorrow on the road against West Virginia. BYU in action tomorrow at Arizona. That'll be a tough one. Utah State welcomes in Boise State. The Utah women back in action against Brigham Young. It's a rivalry game for them. Jazz back in action on Friday, taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. So not a lot of local stuff going on. Good night in college hoops. How much are you dialed into March is a couple weeks away now. Are you starting to lean into the college hoops at all?
Yeah. Obviously, as conference tournaments and the postseason gets nearer and nearer, I'll dial in a little further. The Olympics have kept me a little distracted for a little while. Obviously, I mean, we just got done with the pro football season, so I'm still very much like getting into college basketball and the NBA. Whereas I'll be honest with you, I used to be like a 82 games every night trying to watch some hoops. Mm-hmm. Rick Kamla on the NBA TV network.
A Rick Kamla call out.
My top plays, right? Like the state of basketball, Spence, I know we've talked about it a lot the last couple of weeks. It's lost me a little bit.
Yep.
But, however, the postseason in both the pro and the college levels is amazing. It's awesome. It's going to get the ratings because it deserves the ratings. It's just the pickup ball that we play in the fall that and into the winter that's kind of lost me a little bit.
Yeah, I said this last week. I'll be on TV with Dave Fox tonight. No, Adam Miklich tonight talking Jazz, and we talk about this. The NBA is sending the following message to anybody who criticizes its product. They lean on two things. One, we just signed a $72 billion TV deal. The business of basketball is good. All right, you're right. That's one. Number two, you love the playoffs. Yep, we do. So they're not wrong, but I just won't ever be content watching average basketball for 5.5 months. It's just, as I said last week before we said goodnight, if you don't care, we don't care, right? So, but I could actually, for the first time, part of me's enjoyed college games at times better than the NBA stuff, and I've never had that opinion.
I'm with you there. It's, and I don't know if it's the lack of interest in the NBA. I don't know if it's the draft class, which part of it is the draft class and the fact that one of the top guys in that conversation is right here in our market in AJ DeBonsa. Obviously, Alex Jensen being in his first go-round at the University of Utah brings a little bit of a different, more interested eye for folks in this market. But I'm with you. I think the college game, for the first time in a long time, has been a little bit more interesting in the regular season, where they are usually leaning a little bit too much on the tournament, on NCAA March Madness. And this year, no, I think the fact that the NBA has taken stuff so unseriously on a random Tuesday or Wednesday night, I might be watching a college game instead of an NBA game when that really has never been the case for me. It's always been about the pro stuff, but who's playing, who's inactive, where what can we expect from the NBA on any given night is definitely something that's changing that conversation and the backdrop of, yes, the NBA in this market specifically coming down on the Jazz while allowing, at least to this point in the season, allowing cap circumvention, having a bunch of gambling issues and conversations going around them. It's just it's turned me off a little bit. I can't lie.
It's hard to argue with that. And look, I will be paying attention down the stretch of the NBA season, as most every team has about 25, 28 games left before the playoffs actually start. And if I notice because one of the things the NBA has tried to do here, it is just and I hate the term slippery slope, but it kind of is tell coaches who to play and when to play them. Now, the whole Lauri Markkanen was on a minute restriction thing. He played 40 minutes 2 nights before. That we know what the Jazz are doing, okay? But I'll be paying attention down the stretch to see what teams like the Bulls and the Nets and the Pacers and the Wizards and the Grizzlies and the Mavericks and the Pelicans and the Kings do, okay? If they're changing rotations when they have leads late in games, we will call those things out. The injury stuff, the reporting injuries and falsifying injury information has always been the way to do this because it's a very slippery slope to question whether or not a player is hurt, even though oftentimes they're not. Just if you question it, oh, you're calling our staff a liar? It's very easy to deflect anything from injuries, which is why Washington has been able to avoid a fine by sitting Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I think there's a way you can push back, and it kind of sounds like this. So Jaren Jackson Jr. needed knee surgery. If the Jazz are about to win 60 games and compete for an NBA championship, does Jaren Jackson Jr. have knee surgery after the postseason?
Very likely.
Probably, right?
It's just especially considering what the surgery is. It's kind of a cleanup. It's actually something that I think has been kind of reported on. The Jazz were aware of before he came to Salt Lake, probably an operation that needed to happen anyway, and probably was going to happen after the season anyway.
Right.
However, when you get traded to a team that has incentive to not be very good, that's just the reality of it. And guess what? When you can have that surgery, you can clear things up, then you can add Jaren Jackson to the official injury report and satisfy your partners in the league, whether that be gambling or TV or otherwise.
Yeah.
That's a real part of this as well.
Yeah, don't be surprised if Lowry finds out that he has gout or whatever.
I hope he doesn't have gout.
Yeah, that would suck. Something to keep him out the rest of the way that's a little less gross than gout. So, NBA off for a few more nights, but some really good college hoops on tonight, and, of course, the Olympic stuff. Oh, do you have a favorite? I've got to tell you my new favorite Olympic event.
You said moguls, right?
The double moguls course. Bro, that blows my mind.
You saw the guy finish backwards?
Yes. I tore my meniscus playing golf 2 years ago, dude. Watching those guys do that, I'm like, I'd break both my legs. That is wildly impressive. Your favorite, if you had to choose one, your favorite event this year during the Olympics?
Man, that's a good one. I always do, and I always kind of zero in on both the summer and the Winter Olympics, the oval, right? Whether it's Usain Bolt or whether it's this guy for USA that's just killing it on the speed skating, seeing those guys at top speed and just the prettiness of which they run and or skate has been really interesting. And man, the speed skating has been really entertaining.
Yeah, that's always a great event. So got some prime time with Tarico tonight, some college hoops. Porter will say goodnight. What comes our way on a Wednesday edition of the show?
On a Wednesday edition of The Drive, Craig Bolerjack stops by. We'll recap NBA All-Star Weekend, look ahead to the remainder of the Utah Jazz regular season. Chris Kamrani in studio, Richard Smitty Smith in studio. Those three guys will get us through it all. Potentially the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, as well. But either way, we'll talk to him before the week's end.
All right, there we go. Going to be a fun Wednesday show. We'll get you halfway through your week, one day closer to the weekend, and we'll prepare for some local college basketball as well. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you today. Bobby Marks, Aaron Falk, Zach Harper, Pablo Mastroianni. If you missed any of the sound, website is ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app. Take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then for what we do in our space every afternoon, podcast page. Drive with Spence Checketts is available wherever you get your shows. So do a quick search, find our show, hit subscribe, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. If you will do that for us, we would appreciate it because it actually helps. That's why everyone in the business asks you to do it. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Tuesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday drive. As always, you can catch that right here on ESPN